Go ahead. Yep. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our State Building Code Council meeting for May 21st. So we're going to get started with roll call, and I'm going to have Shannon do roll call.
Diane is here. Andrew Klein, Vice Chair, General Public East of the Cascade Crest.
I am here.
Jay Arnold, City Legislative Body Member or Mayor.
Here.
Welcome. Al French, County Elected Legislative Body Member or Elected Executive, East of the Cascade Crest. And by the way, everybody is muted upon entry. So if you need to unmute, you can hit your space bar or the little microphone at the bottom of your screen. Not sure how it works on a phone. James or Jim, General Construction, Commercial and Industrial.
Present.
Robert Draper, Structural Engineer Profession, East of the Cascade Crest. Tony Doan, Local Government Fire Service Official, East of the Cascade Crest.
Present.
L. Anderson, Architectural Design Profession.
Present.
Phil Lemley, City Elected Legislative Body Member or Mayor, East of the Cascade Crest.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm present.
Corey Wilker, Construction Building Trades. I saw you on there with Corey. Robert Hamlin, County Elected Legislative Body Member or Elected Executive.
I'm present.
Carolyn Traub, Mechanical Engineer Profession.
Present.
Micah Chappelle, Building Code Enforcement Official.
I am here, thank you.
Todd Byrether, Manufacturers, Installers, or Suppliers of Building Materials or Components, East of the Cascade Crest.
Here.
Our ex officio members, Representative Mike Chapman, Representative Larry Hoff, Senator Linda Wilson, Senator Joe Nguyen, Rod Much, Labor and Industries.
Here.
Derek Meyer-Bachtel, Assistant Attorney General.
I'm here.
Yep.
So do you want to readdress Corey?
Corey Wilker, are you there?
I'm here. Sorry. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe we have a quorum.
Yes.
Anyone from the public that would like to be introduced?
Good morning, everyone. Terry Beals representing Sound Transit. Good to see everyone.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Hi, my name is
Jed
Lee
Sherman
Wagner.
with
I'm the policy
IAPO
program
group is here.
Okay, Jed, I got you. Who was the, say again?
This is Libby Wagner. I'm the policy program manager for adult family homes with residential care services.
Thank you.
Scott Peterson with Fire Sprinklers Local 699 out of Seattle, Washington.
Thank you.
Ricky Campbell, business agent for Local 699.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, this is Todd Short. I represent the city of Redmond.
Hey, Todd.
Hello.
All right. All right, thank you everyone for attending. got a full schedule today and it should go really well. I want to take a few minutes here, or a minute or two, and I want to recognize some folks. These are council members that their term is up and they're no longer on the council, but we wanted to thank them. The first one is to Kevin. State Building Code Council would like to thank you for all your time, dedication, and support while serving on the council. We appreciate the time you have taken out of your busy schedule to support us in the mission, making Washington State Building and facilities safe and accessible to everyone. Your expertise has been invaluable on the council. We extend our heartfelt thanks to you. This letter will go out to Kevin Schutte for his service. And the next one is Leanne, and I won't repeat the same things, but Leanne was my vice chair last year, and I really appreciate her dedication and service over the years. So this letter will go out to her. And the last one is Doug Orth. And the additional language in this is thank you for serving as chair for 2 years. He did a remarkable job, but his term is up. And so he's been, someone else has been appointed, and we have that member in attendance today, which is great. So thank you, those council members. It's a lot of work, and we do appreciate everything that you did for the council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before we start, one other thing that's not on your agenda, but this is something I would like to do. We have 2 new council members today, and I would like them to just briefly state just anything, information about them that they would like to share with us. Since they are new council members, we always like to introduce them. And the first one is Jay Arnold, and he represents elected legislative body member or mayor. So Jay, would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Jay Arnold. I am Deputy Mayor for the City of Kirkland, and have represented Kirkland on some regional bodies dealing with the built environment around growth, transportation, and sustainability. So I'm really delighted to be able to join this council. I'm looking forward to working with all of you. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much and welcome. It will be exciting, guaranteed. Okay, and we do have another new member. Where am I at? James? Oh. James Miller, would you, do you like to be addressed as Jim or James?
Jim is fine.
Jim, okay. And he's representing general construction, commercial and industrial building. And Jim, you want to say a few words about yourself?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. My name is Jim Milbauer. I am live in Tri-Cities, Kennewick, Washington. I sit on the Kennewick City Council and several other boards and commissions, as well as a pipe fitter and business agent for Local Union 598, working on the Hanford project. Beautiful wife, 3 children, 5 grandchildren. I'm looking forward to learning some more information about how our state operates in regards to codes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, welcome everyone. All right, so the first item on the agenda, or second item on the agenda, is we need to review and approve the agenda for today. So
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you.
I'll second. This is Tony.
Okay. Motion and second. Any discussion? All right. We'll go through the agenda as stated. All right. Is there any public comment on any item that's not on the agenda? Okay. Thank you. All right. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the April 16th meeting?
Madam Chair, sorry to interrupt. This is Todd. Did we vote on the agenda, or do we need to?
We did.
Oh, I didn't hear it. Sorry. Okay.
Yes.
Motion to approve the minutes as shown.
Second.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second?
And a second.
All right, we have a motion and second. Any discussion, any corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the minutes will stand as posted. All right, well, the next item on the agenda is the Group 1 code change proposals to date. And
What do you want to pull up first?
Well, let's start with the building. Madam Chair, can I offer a point of order?
yes.
This is Dave Cocott. I tried to get into the meeting utilizing the link and was notified that the link was incorrect and had to come in through the meeting ID. The agenda has passed the item that I wanted to be able to offer some information on, so I'm requesting the council allow the opportunity to return back to public comment on items not on the agenda.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you were having trouble technology wise, that's fine. So Dave, you want to, what would you like to address? It's not on the agenda.
Thank you, members of the council. This is Dave Cocott. I'm the president of the Washington State Association of Farm Marshals. Very recently, we learned that the labor and industry was going through some proposed rulemaking, particularly WSR 21-09-087. Made contact with the director of the Building Code Council and inquired whether or not the council had been made aware of this. This is some specific changes being made to the L&I WACs regarding plumbing. In particular, the one that we're very concerned about is they are redefining the definition of the word plumbing. This is of concern to the fire sprinkler industry, fire marshals, even the building officials are very concerned about this particular language. So as the Building Code Council oversees the plumbing code, we thought that there would have been some involvement with the Building Code Council in feeding back on this. Unfortunately, the hearing for this is on May 25th. It'd be 9 a.m. on the 25th. But what it does is it adds including multi-purpose or passive purge fire sprinkler systems into the definition of plumbing. Obviously, that's going to create some major issues. We, fire marshals, contractors, and the State Fire Marshal's Office did meet with L&I separately from the hearing, but there was a lot of resistance to this, basically utilizing some information that was not accurate. And we basically want to bring this to the attention of the State Building Code Council.
Okay, great. We'll put that down and then we'll see if there's any discussion. We'll put that down maybe at the end of item 6.
And I may not be able to participate at that point. I have other meetings, so I just wanted to see if they'd make sure the council is aware of it and take a look into it.
Okay. Okay, Dave, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So while we have Dave in the virtual room?
Yes, go ahead.
What is the intended purpose of L&I changing the definition? Or what is the stated purpose of them changing the definition?
The stated purpose of it from their standpoint is only plumbers should be working on plumbing systems. And because the multi-purpose systems are connected to the sprinkler, or the sprinkler piping is connected and sprinkler heads are connected to the plumbing, that you must be a licensed plumber to be able to do work on those systems. The concern from our side is the plumbers shouldn't be installing sprinkler systems because they're not certified to install sprinkler systems. So I think there's an agreeable point between this, but L&I not going to the parties that are affected by this has created a lot of concern. Their biggest concern about this is long runs of dead end pipe that could result in contamination of the domestic water system that they don't want to be associated with. Having designed these systems myself, these are very specific about how long a run you could be. In fact, during my discussion with L&I, I said we used to design it to approximately 12 inches, and they go, well, that's not a problem, but the ones we have trouble with, the ones that are 7 feet dead ends. Well, that's not allowed with those types of systems. So it just seems unnecessary that we would want to be able to go down this road, especially with the State Fire Marshal Office registering contractors for doing those types of systems. They weren't even included in the discussion.
Dave, is this coming through as any kind of a proposal to the code?
Not to, it is to WAC 296-400A005. It is not coming in under 51, WAC 51 or RCW 1927.
Okay.
So this would control who installs it and licenses, but not what gets installed necessarily.
Correct.
Okay, they're just talking about the license through LNI.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, would it be okay if we kind of dug into this and checked it out?
That's all I'm asking at this point.
Okay. Okay.
Because we think that Building Code Council should have been consulted and should have been involved up to this point. And this is basically the second hearing on this. We also did not find out about this until just before this hearing as well. So it disturbed us that all the affected parties were not participating.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. And we'll get into this and we'll check it out and get some more information.
Okay. Thank you very much. I much appreciate it.
You bet. Okay. Did we approve the minute? Oh, we did. Okay. So we're on to the proposals. And we're going to do today is just review. So is the chair, you want to start with the building code?
With the building code.
And is the chair Andrew here? Andrew, would you just like to review these and just give an overview or whatever you want to do?
Yes, ma'am. So we had 4 proposals that have been received. Do you mind blowing that up a little bit more so we can get all those columns in view?
Yep.
Or not blowing it up, I guess, making it a bit smaller.
Is that better?
Yeah, that'll work. Actually, I think it was on my end. I had something floating in front. Okay, perfect. So we had one code change request come in for guards on occupied roofs. This was, I believe we accepted all of these, if I remember correctly. So the guards on the occupied roofs had to do with, that was, I don't remember the details of that, honestly. But.
Well, I'll step in there because I read through that.
Yes, thank you.
I was surprised that they haven't had this in the code because it's mostly dealing with addition of the rooftop decks. If you have a rooftop deck, you also have to have guards up there on the occupied areas, which wasn't in there before, apparently. So probably a good thing.
Yeah, I'd agree. there wasn't much opposition there. Next one had to do with emergency responder communication coverage enhancements. That changed some definitions as well as the requirements in Chapter 9. This has been an issue going on quite some time that's been vexing, I guess, both the emergency responders as well as building owners. But standards are being worked on now through UL. So I think things are coming to a head there, which this code change will help out with. The next code change had to do with NFPA 13R sprinklers, and I don't remember the details there honestly either. However, that's the section stating, that a section that which standard is referenced for those systems. So Diane, do you remember those details?
Yeah, from what I remember reading this, it had to do with the 13R, and the original language didn't allow for the 13R. And so.
Okay, I think it may have had to do with different height requirements.
I can help you on that, Andrew, if you need to.
Thank you, Micah.
Yeah.
So for the 2021, ICC adopted a very strange change to the building code that lowered the allowance of 13R systems to 30 feet. where the NFPA standard is 60 feet, which was what previously was in the code. So this code change proposal goes back to that allowable 60 feet that aligns with the standard.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Micah. And then Micah, do you remember the last one as well? Separation?
I don't, but Ken is on, I think, and Ken could probably summarize that if you want.
Oh, yeah. Ken, do you mind jumping in if you're available?
Yeah, can you hear me all right? I just had to mute the television.
Yep.
Yes, no?
Yeah.
Yep, we can hear you
me.
well.
No?
All right, well, sounds like we're gonna miss you, Ken. We can hear you, but maybe don't know that.
Can he not hear?
He can hear us, I guess. Yeah, he can.
He just disconnected.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, Diane, I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, great. And what's the deadline for proposals?
May 31st.
Okay, so we're coming up to that. So, all right.
And just for clarification purposes, so now it's not the goal to discuss each proposal individually. The first step is, so we receive these proposals and the council needs to send, yeah. So if you can see on the screen, this is the procedure, the highlighted area on the screen. So these proposals are received and the council needs to review the proposals and check for completeness. There are specific requirements in this form that needs to be met. If the council wants to go into details for each proposal, yes, you can do that, but this is the main goal when referring the proposals to the TAC.
And all those proposals for the IBC are appropriate to that tag, correct?
Yes, that's right. We reviewed each one. They give everything that is needed.
And they're
yes.
complete. Okay.
Thank you, Stoyan. That's great because I was anticipating, 100 or so proposals for the energy code tag that we'll be respecting and hoping not to have to introduce each one of them and go through each one individually.
If you want to do that, you're free to do it, but
we'll do that in the tag.
Yeah,
that's what the tag's for. So
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did have some questions when we get to the energy code piece of this.
So I think we're going to do the fire. Is that the next one on your list? The IFC?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I think Tony's here.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got quite a few. So you
I'd like to just take the advice of Stoyan here, and I would like to just clarify. Are we taking any action on these as far as forwarding these to the tags, or is this just here's what's going to the tag?
You can refer these comments to the TAC with the recommendations, to review the proposals, or you can say, okay, this proposal is not for the TAC, it's not complete. What the council staff did, we checked the proposals again, if they meet the requirements, if they have all the information that is needed, and we believe all the proposals are accurate. They have everything that we need.
Thank you, Stoyan. So based on that, I first of all like to thank staff for doing the double checking on that. And it sounds like if these are ready to go to the IFC tag, then I'd be happy to have that done. If Ken would like to comment on any of these, because I know a lot of those are his. Looks like there's a lot under proponent for Mr. Brule. So if he wants to comment on them, he can. Otherwise, we can move on.
No, I'm sorry about my audio and hookup before, but the previous one, I don't know if you guys heard that, just that one you talked about is on the fire and building code, the 2 hour. That was just something that was not duplicated in the building code that should have been. All the other ones, no, let's just wait till the fire code tag because I'd be taking up way too much of the council's time on this. So thank you for the opportunity.
Sounds good, Ken. Thank you so much. And again, thank you staff for doing the work on that.
This is Micah. I have a point of order or question on this. I don't believe the fire code document is posted on the meeting online on the State Building Code Council website. Can we get that put up, please?
It's posted. It's on the website.
What's the title of that document for IFC?
Should be 2021.
You're talking about the proposals?
The title is 2021 IFC code proposals as of May 2021. So it's the last document. When you open the link, it's the last document on the website.
Did you look under the meeting and the documents for the meeting?
Yeah, I'm under the meeting and the schedules right now, so that's fine. I'll see if I can find it, but I don't see it.
There's it only lists 10 and then it bumps it, so I'll have to talk to IT about that. Once the meeting is started.
You actually click on the meeting and then it'll take you to all of the documents there. If you just look at it.
I'm sorry, who's talking? Krista, we can't hear you.
Oh, Krista.
If you actually click on the meeting link, it'll show you all of the documents, but if you just look at the quick view, it'll only list the first 10.
Sounds, Crystal, like you're in a bell tower or something like that.
Can you show the fire?
Yeah. Well, this is the fire.
Yeah, there's quite a few fire. And then I noticed that some of them cross over to the IBC as well. So they're both codes. So that's why they got posted on there. All right. Any other comments on the fire code proposals or any questions on any particular one? So we have the proponents here. All right. So these will all go to the tag and be addressed. The next one is the energy code. And this is the commercial energy code. Jill, you got it easy today.
Yeah, for the last time. Yeah, we have 3 and they're all about lighting. They're all the A students. They get their homework in on time. None of them are going to be the most impactful things we consider in this energy code. I think the first one is mostly clerical, and I think the other ones are interesting, but probably like less than 1 or 2% energy savings total. I did have a question, which is on I think on maybe the third one. You click on that. Or, yeah, I think the third one. It is missing information about a cost, and I guess I'd like to know the criteria with which I know there's formal criteria. Can you click on the yeah, there we go.
This is the short form.
Now we see the your Chrome browser.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. So this is the short form that has no requirement for cost and energy savings, but it would change something. It would, according to the proponent, go to the IECC language instead of using the integrated draft Washington State Energy Code language. So I wanted to kind of get an initial read as an example on how much this council will look to apply the criteria and disqualify applications or proposals. If this is one, can you scroll down? I think this is, I guess I was thinking of the second one, maybe.
Well, the good thing is we have only 3, and we can go back and review the forms again, and we can connect with you, Jill, and see, the information that we're asking for. I want to dig into it a little bit more.
Yeah, I guess if somebody has a good idea and they don't submit the energy and cost information, is that this body will throw it out. Is that?
Well, we'll ask for them to complete the other form, and they have a certain amount of time to complete the form. And I had looked this over when it came in and told Shannon that it was okay to go on the short form.
Okay. I guess the second one is the one I was thinking of. This is the third one, and I had confused them. Because in it says there's energy savings, but it doesn't include cost data.
Are you talking about this one?
No, this is
the second one.
Because I looked at this not that long ago, and oh yes, it does. It has down here. It says it's going to reduce energy consumption, and that to me says that the short form is not the right form. If you scroll to the next page,
keep going.
There's not a lot of cost data here, or perhaps any. So I guess, I guess I don't know how fine-grained our criteria is going to be. It's probably not a lot of cost, but it's not submitted. So is this a case where we, even after the 31st, would reach back out to the proponent and ask for additional information, or is it just crossed off the list right away?
We can ask for additional information, and the proponent has 30 days to respond.
Okay, and that's even after the May 31st deadline.
This is how I read it, but Krista can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, in the past, we have given them the amount of time after the deadline to complete it if we find we need more information.
Okay, and then the council would, at the next meeting in June 18th or so, would perhaps not be able to refer those to the tag if they're incomplete, or would we just refer them all to the tag and then it would be disqualified if they fail to provide said information in 30 days?
That is what we've done in the past.
Okay, refer them all, or all the ones that the council wants to the tag, and then receive the information and update the proposals as the information comes back in.
Correct.
Okay, thanks. That really helps me understand how this process will work.
And Jill, you'll know which ones that are not complete and that we've asked for more information. And you're exactly right. Part of the requirement is to provide some cost analysis wherever they get that from.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, so that's all the proposals we received, right, for the three. I guess that's all we have right now. All right, great. Thank you, chairs, for doing that. Okay, let's get into item number 6. And these are items for rulemaking decisions. So we've got a number of them. I think it'll go quite well. So the first one we're going to take on is the 2018 IFC Mobile On-Demand Fuel. And the council reviewed, or supposed to review we're going to review the testimony, and then we do have to vote on this today. So a little bit background, and Soyan's going to help me with this, is that this is the mobile on-demand fueling, and we talked about this at the last meeting, took testimony. We have filed the CR 102 as the original document. Then we received a lot of testimony, and so we're going to review that today, and then we will decide if we're going to file which CR 103 we're going to file, correct?
Yes.
So, Ann, do you want to add to that?
So what you see on the screen, we have 2 options in this document. Of course, the council may decide something else, but for discussion purposes, in option 1, this is the CR 102 as it was filed and open for testimony. And when you go further down, I'll wait for Sean. You get to the highlight where it says option 2. So the option 2 is based on the testimony and the proposal that we received, and there are some changes to the initial proposal. So if the council decides to go this way, then we need to file. We need to follow additional process for the filing because we are changing the initial proposal in the CR 102.
Right. So here's my idea. We can take option 2, and we have the original document there. That's the CR 102 is filed, that document, and it's up on your screen. And what Stoyan did is put in the testimony, right? Mm-hmm. The language of the testimony. So we can talk about that and just kind of review what the testimony was in place of that. And then I think as we get to the end of that, we can look at that whole document and decide if we, which way we want to go. And keep in mind, it's not an all or nothing. I mean, if there's some testimony that we need to change the document based on, we can do that, or all of it or none of it. So maybe we can just start with the first change, proposed change, and review it that way. So is that the first one, Shannon?
Yeah.
Okay, coordination of permits. Screen here. Let's see.
Sure, Glenn, before we get started on that.
Yes,
This is Tony. For clarification, the first option is what's gone through the fire tag and is what is being proposed. The second one, if we were to go with that, what's that do for timelines? Does it set us back any as far as a time frame as to when it would be adopted? Are we restarting a process?
Not necessarily. It depends on how much change we're making. If there's just a minor change today and we file the 103 based on that, we're okay. If it's major and we're changing this document, then yes, there's a different process. Maybe I'll ask Julianne if you want to get into a little bit more detail on that.
Can you show the RCW? It's a number 3 document, the variance between proposed and final rule.
Yeah, and there's language that we're bound to, and we're going to pull it up here for you.
Okay, this is the RCW that we need to follow. And item 1 talks about if the council don't adopt the rule as it was originally proposed and make substantial changes to it, and we need to file a supplemental notice in the proceeding. So it will slow us down. We need to go back and follow a similar process. It's not, we don't start with CR 102 again, but we need to file the supplemental notice. Item 3 talks about if the agency doesn't file a supplemental notice, but adopts the rule that has some changes from the original proposal, but these are not substantial changes. So I guess the council needs to decide if option 2 has substantial changes, then we need to follow the process and file a supplemental notice. Or if the council members don't believe these changes are substantial, we can go to item 3 and file the CR 103 with the minor changes to the initial proposal.
Okay, I would say that unless I'm missing something and I am just not in the loop on this other proposal, this option B, just to clarify, this did not go through the tag again, correct?
It didn't go yet. Well, I just started when you guys were discussing this, but what I saw and the information I got from Ray, the same proposal was introduced a few times with some minor differences. So I'm not sure what was discussed on the last TAC meeting because I wasn't here.
Okay.
But based on the information, the issues were discussed on several TAC meetings and on the council meeting in January, I believe.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's what I'm just trying to figure out and make sure that I'm understanding is if this is the same stuff that was taken to the tag on multiple occasions and we went over this extensively, then that's a concern to me that option B is here and to not call it substantial when the tag did not agree on it at that time. And I'm wondering if this is going to push back our time frame because I imagine this is going to be viewed as substantial. Then what's keeping them from going through the 2021 cycle process where there can be public comment again and go back to the tag?
So Tony, just to clarify, we're actually looking at the first document that was filed, the CR 102, which was the original one we voted on. We voted to put that, file it as a CR 102, correct?
Yes.
So last month when we had all the testimony, I think what Stoyan is trying to do is just make it a little bit easier for us to look at the testimony, how that would fit in. So like I said, we could disregard all the testimony, but we have an obligation this meeting to review that testimony. And I think the easiest way to do that is how it fits into that document.
Sure.
So we can go through, and there might be one sentence that with the testimony introduced makes more sense. And that's the only thing in the whole document, or it may be several things. I guess the bottom line is just what you're saying is that if we go to change it based on all the testimony, then I think that would be substantial.
Understood.
So
okay.
we got to kind of keep that in mind as we go through this.
Okay. Thank you for that, Chair Glenn, and thank you, Stoyan, for the clarification on that. Appreciate it.
All right. So the first, I'm going to call it testimony because that's what it was. Was under the coordination of permits, and the suggestion was this was not an original public. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Okay. No, what's the change?
The
numbering.
Oh.
The numbering is a change that we are proposing because the submit of the proposal that we got with the testimony had the wrong section number. So
okay.
Disregard,
so this is okay.
Disregard the comment. Yeah.
This is very straightforward. All right.
You will see the changes with the underline and strike.
Oh, okay. All right. So we'll just keep going down to the first actual testimony, proposed change. And like I said, this is based on the testimony that we reviewed or that we heard last meeting. So they were suggesting that we delete this section 5707121 altogether. There was any substitution for that? Just, okay. And instead, if the local authorities having jurisdiction allow mobile on-demand fueling and do not offer such operator or vehicle permit. And then the additional language, nothing in this section shall prohibit a local authority from accepting and recognizing a mobile on-demand fueling operator or truck permit or certification from another jurisdiction if the jurisdiction allows mobile fueling on demand. So let's just stop right there. And is there any clarification or questions or what they're getting at with this testimony?
Diane, this is Andrew, if I may.
Yes.
So in the interest of full disclosure, Booster Fuels is a client of mine, and I'll be recusing myself from any votes on this. But what this does, it takes out the first paragraph just because it's not necessary. It's superfluous language. There's nothing in there that needs to be pointed to in order to enforce anything. And then in the second paragraph here, a lot of this was just cleanup for authority to authorities, to vehicle permit. That's what the jurisdiction is actually issuing a vehicle permit for the vehicles. They're not certifying the truck. And then we put down here just the ability for any, making it explicit that if a jurisdiction allows mobile fueling, but they don't want to go through the process of issuing vehicle permits, then they can accept another jurisdiction's as long as it's valid, meaning it hasn't expired.
Andrew, just for clarification on that, if a neighboring jurisdiction has gone through that process and has allowed the mobile fueling or the permits and approved the certification, this is also saying that there's nothing that the neighboring local authority can do to prohibit that. Is that correct?
Are you saying there's, so say Tacoma wants to use Seattle's, Seattle issues a vehicle permit and they go to Tacoma and the Tacoma fire marshal says, okay, you can operate here. And because you've got a valid permit in Seattle, I'm going to just allow you to operate. You're saying that there's nothing in here for the Seattle fire marshal to say, no, I don't want them operating in Tacoma. Is that what you mean?
No, I mean, like if Seattle says, well, you have one from Tacoma, but we also have other stipulations that you'd like to meet, or we'd like to run you through our own checklist or things that are unique to our jurisdiction. Can the mobile fueler come back and say, there's nothing in this section that shall prohibit you from accepting this? Because that's how I kind of see some of that language, and that's where that's kind of concerning to me.
The fire marshal over the jurisdiction is always the one in control who can add any additional requirement. They're not being forced to take any other jurisdiction's permit. They just have the ability to, and sure, they could add additional requirements on top. And, if that's challenged, they can just say, well, we're not accepting that permit. Maybe I'm not understanding the concern, but I don't see a loophole here is what I think you're getting at.
Understood, Andrew. Thank you.
So Andrew, just for clarification, the way I'm reading it is that a jurisdiction, a joining jurisdiction is not expected to allow, but they can accept.
Correct. This was written specifically because a lot of, especially smaller jurisdictions, don't want to have to permit vehicles. So originally you had the first section of jurisdictions that do permit, and then this was for jurisdictions that choose not to permit. And this allows specifically jurisdictions that choose not to permit themselves to allow another jurisdiction's permit. So that
I have a point of order. If I could be recognized, their proposal still includes the word shall, and it's not shown that it's that it was may before.
You're saying in the testimony it wasn't in there?
You see that where it says in 5707.1.2.1, first sentence, a conforming operator vehicle permit issued by one local authority having jurisdiction shall be recognized. They did not indicate that that was a change from may. If you go up to look at the option A, it has language that says may.
I was about again, there is the qualifier if those jurisdictions allow mobile fueling.
May accept. Okay.
I agree. It seems odd that they wouldn't be shown as a change from the original draft A in draft B. If it is in fact a change, which it looks like it is, because 5701.1.2.1 says may, and in the B version, it says shall.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Actually, I'm going to step in. and disagree with both of you. Sorry, Ken. They're actually striking 507 or 5707.1.2.1 entirely. And in 5707.1.2.2 in option 1, that section does say shall be recognized. So that language that Shannon showed on the screen does exist in the current option 1. But as what they're doing is they're striking the entire previous section up above, as Shannon will scroll just a little bit. And that is the section that has the word may in it. So I do believe they're striking that section to get rid of that allowance, to make it a shall issue type thing without question. And I do have some concerns with that. Are you following along? Am I missing that?
Well, actually, you need to go down, and I might have quoted the wrong section. In the original option A, 5707.1.2.1, may accept conforming permits.
Right, and they're striking that entire section completely in their option 2. And renumbering 5707.1.2.2. So Shannon, if you wouldn't mind going up to page, the page 2 of the first option.
You're comparing the proposals.
5707.1.2.2.
This is a significant change because the change is made to shall.
But it was in the original. This is what was filed.
No. This is the section that they're talking
So
about.
if you scroll down just a little bit.
This was filed.
Yes, it is.
5701.1. There. Scroll down a little bit more. So if you see right there, Ken and Chael, 5707.1.2.2, the word shall be recognized is in there in the first sentence.
Yes.
That is option 1. They are not changing that in option 2. They are striking the previous section completely that has the sentence that says may.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for it. Yeah,
it does.
And that does take away that may option, as Ken pointed out, though. And so that's something I think that he's trying to make a point to for the council, is they're moving away from an option to a shall. It's not questioned that you shall do it.
I would, the intent of taking that out was cleanup. If you have both sections, I would still think that the shall means shall, even with the other section, but,
Right.
So we do.
I don't disagrry with you there, Andrew. I just think that you say shall in what I would consider a scoping sentence of 5707.1.2.1, the new section, and then you take it away later on that says nothing shall prohibit this. Well, you prohibited it in the charging sentence of that paragraph. So
I remember they're both at the same level, so it's not the scoping. So it was.
I understand that, but
2.2.
You're saying in one sentence, the first sentence, that that a jurisdiction shall accept these, shall recognize and accept. And 2 sentences later, you're saying nothing in this section shall prohibit from accepting.
So I'm going to
interrupt.
interrupt.
Sentence is not even needed because you're not giving them a choice per the first sentence.
Well, the choice per the first sentence, remember, is if they don't allow mobile on-demand fueling.
Okay.
It doesn't say that in the sentence.
Sure, it's the qualifier after the comma.
So Jay has his hands up. Jay, go ahead.
Thank you. And if the purpose of this particular change is cleanup, I find the original version more clear, in that the original section 1.2.1 talks about jurisdictions that offer permits and gives them the option of accepting permits issued by other jurisdictions. In section 2, section 1.2.2 is about authorities that don't issue permits, saying that they'll shall, if you're not issuing permits, you need to accept permits issued by other jurisdictions. And it seems a lot, if the purpose here is cleanup, it seems a lot more clear in the original state that's been vetted than the two changes in this section. I'm not sure what the confusion is trying to be cleaned up with these changes, because it's, from this discussion, it's making it a lot more confusing to understand what the meaning here. Thank you.
But from industry standpoint, there's no issue leaving it all in.
Okay, let's go down to option 2.
Before you go, or yes, you can go to option 2. I had another comment on that same section.
Okay.
I have, and I know it's used in a couple other places, the vehicle permit. I didn't know the jurisdiction was issuing a vehicle permit. I thought we were issuing activity permit. In other words, you are performing mobile refueling in a specific location based on your site plan. And am I missing something here? I'm almost certain that my jurisdiction, maybe Ken can correct me if I'm wrong, are we issuing a vehicle permit, Ken, or are we issuing an operational permit?
There's three permits. There's a site permit, the vehicle permit, and an operator permit.
3 separate permits. Are they combined into one for one cost, or are there 3 separate permits for everybody?
There's one for the operator itself. So example, Booster Fuels would have one to become an operator. Then there'll be one for each individual truck or vehicle, and then one for each individual site that's approved or location.
And each jurisdiction is issuing all 3 of those?
I cannot speak for other jurisdictions, only Seattle.
Okay, just for Seattle. Okay, thanks.
So Ken, does vehicle permit make more sense than certification?
I'd like option A.
With the certification?
Right now, I just.
He likes the old one.
Okay.
You're muted again.
Oh, okay. I can't. You're muted.
Okay. We're in favor. Seattle Fire is in favor of option A. I cannot speak on option B.
Okay, so you want the certification name in there, not vehicle permit. I'm just asking you specifically on this one item, so we can be clear where you're coming from. Is that what I'm understanding? On this particular,
you're understanding that the original language 5707.1.2.2 and option 1 does use the terminology truck certification.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So let's go down to permit record maintenance. And what the testimony presented was to add in available list of current mobile fueling operator permits and mobile fueling vehicle permits and make the list available upon request. So that's an addition instead of or other information source to enable all parties to have information about whether the permits are in good standing. So my question is, was this intended to make available upon request to who? Andrew, do you know the answer to that?
So my understanding would be that this would be to make it available to another jurisdiction so that they can know whether or not a permit is in good standing.
Does anybody have any questions on that or comments on that particular?
To me, I don't think it's relevant either way. That would be covered under the Freedom of Information Act. So I'm not sure that needs to be actually put in the code, but like I said, either way, it's fine.
Jay, do you have a question?
Yeah, my particular comment would be available on request seems to be like Micah just mentioned, like a public disclosure request where you actually have to take action versus having the information available, which sounds more like it's published in public, which is, I think, more useful in this case.
All right, thank you for those comments.
And also, earlier we just talked about vehicle certification, and this uses vehicle permit, and I don't know how interchangeable those terms are. Maybe they are completely interchangeable, but it seems like we should stick with one if we're referring to the same thing. In other words, does a vehicle get certified or does it get a permit? And are they the same thing? It seems like in the language of this, we should be consistent in how we refer to that.
Right. Well, the original language does refer to permits, because it says publicly available list of current permits. And then it stops there. Well, no, or other information.
Yeah, and that would be consistent with the option B 5707.1.2.1 that refers to it a vehicle permit, not a truck certification.
Right.
And so I'm just suggesting that we be consistent throughout this body of code, that we either refer to it as a truck certification or a vehicle permit. And I don't know which one, but we should choose one and stick with it.
Okay. All right. So let's go on down to the next. Okay, so they're talking about tiered sites. This was a long discussion. Where a site permitting process is required by the local jurisdiction, a original language site shall be designated by the fire code official to be one of the following, and based on local provisions as necessitated by zoning. Okay, so go back up, and they want to eliminate that and instead say a two-tiered system identifying site conditions or characteristics shall be used by the fire code official to designate fueling sites as tier 1 or tier 2. So, okay. So, and then it goes on, and the original document does spell out tier 1 and tier 2, right? Tier 1 and 2 tier sites, yeah.
Yes. There are subsections below.
So the proposed language, the testimony, added the language that local fire code official should be notified of the intent to conduct mobile fueling operations at tier 1 site and shall self-certify. I don't think that was in there. So they're adding what the definition of, I guess, a little bit more specific about tier 1 and tier 2. And then B goes into conform with state and local 10 business days. They're adding that language of permit within 10 business days unless the fire code official disputes the self-certification. So they're proposing to add language about, yeah, giving so many days, and there's quite a bit of additional in this language. So I would like to hear some comments.
You just want us to jump in or raise our hands?
Sorry. I can just go ahead and jump in. I can see you, so go ahead.
This is Mike. Some of this language I'm not opposed to. I do have an issue with telling the authority having jurisdiction that they shall issue a permit when this is talking about tier site identification. So I don't believe that 10-day item should be in this location of the code. I'm not sure how that's relevant to identification of a tier 1 site.
So this is Andrew. The purpose of the tier 1 and the tier 2 sites was to streamline things both for industry as well as for the jurisdictions. So, you know, we were, as industry, we were originally looking at 3 days for notification. You know, the 10 days from my memory, you know, that was a discussion with fire code officials that 10 days was plenty of time there. So 10 days just means that that's the time frame at which the jurisdiction can come back and say, no, we need to look at this in more detail. So cease. Otherwise, 10 days just means if the jurisdiction looks at it, it's a normal office parking lot. They say, okay, go ahead. You know, they get to it when they can, or if they can, if they're concerned. And 20, 30 days later, they go out, do an inspection and have a concern. They can always come back with additional conditions or, you know, require a permit or, you know, say this is a tier 2 site. At this point, we disagree with your self-certification of it being a tier 1. So that's why the 10 days are there.
That makes sense, Andrew. I have no issue with the 10 days or why the information you have in here. I just believe it's in the wrong location. You are indicating under the identification of a tier 1 site language that they shall issue a permit within a given time. That language, if you want to have the fire department or the authority having jurisdiction issue a permit within a certain amount of time, then that needs to be in another location of the code. I think there's something in here on permitting and permit issuing. But this section is identifying language of what a tier 1 site is. That has nothing to do with issuing the permit within a timeline. That's only defining what a tier 1 site is. So I'm not disputing the information. I'm just saying it's not.
Yep, agreed. It could be split up much better.
What if the title was permitting of tier 1 sites?
And remember, the titles themselves are not enforceable.
Right. And I think is what this section is trying to do is give an outline of what a tier 1 and tier 2 site is, not how to permit them. I think the permitting is part of other locations in the document.
Okay. Going down to the tier 2. And they're just proposing to add the sites that require an inspection shall be approved by the fire code official prior to permit issuance. And they want to add due to the presence of atypical geographic or safety concerns defined by the specific site conditions or characteristics. Any comments on that? Questions? Discussion? Okay, is that all the tier 2? Okay, all right, well, let's just keep going down.
I think that was the last change.
Was that the last change? Okay, so overall, let's just, I'm just going to open it up for any general discussion, and then we can have some discussion on individual sections that maybe we want to readdress, or all together. I want to make sure that we are thorough on this, but we're not here to reinvent this. We're here to determine if the testimony should change this document in any way, small or large. So why don't we just jump in there? If anybody wants to talk about a section again, maybe for a change, suggest a change or not, we'll go to that section.
So this is Andrew. I would suggest, just a suggestion, that we undelete the first paragraph. It sounded like there was consensus that that was necessary. Everything else sounded like there wasn't too much opposition there, that it sounded reasonable. You know, wording could have been better split up, but if we're not rewriting this, I don't think it's appropriate at this point to split up sections which are in there, you know, move stuff around. If that's what the council wants to do, then it should probably be sent back to the tag one more time to do that.
Well, I don't think we're splitting anything up. We're just the actual testimony would
So the idea of the tier 1 and the tier 2 sites dealing with permitting versus the description of the sites. Micah had mentioned how that could be cleaned up by separating it, but I think that's a big enough change that if that were to be done, it should go back through the tag process to do that. But again, I feel that where it is, it may not be the best spot, but it's clear enough and it can be cleaned up in the 2021 edition.
So this is Micah. In some ways, I agree with Andrew. I think some of these changes are okay, but I do have some concerns that we're trying to amend this on the fly and then send it into a CR 103. I think that what Andrew said, we should send this either back to the tag or the BFP committee and have them kind of meld these two together and find common ground. Because I think some of the changes are good. Some of the cleanup is good. Some of it I don't think is necessary. And I'm not sure that we should be doing this that quickly. Even if we're up against a little bit of a timeline, I think that the BFP committee or even the tag could meld these two together during one of their meetings. So I agree with that recommendation.
Chair Glenn, this is Tony.
Yeah, Tony.
I agree with Micah there. I'm not terribly comfortable with going into any of these changes without running it back through the tag process. And for that reason, I don't want to cut off anyone else's discussion, but I would like to make a motion when the time is appropriate.
I think the time is appropriate.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adopt option A with the exception of the punctuation on the first change in option B. And any changes after that to run it through the 2021 code proposal.
Okay, let me just clarify. You would like to accept what change?
Just the punctuation change in option B, the very first one, and everything else stick with option A.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So what that is we're going to accept option A, which is the document that was filed as the CR 102 with just the punctuation changes, and file the CR 103. So that's the motion. So we need to vote on that, and then we will go from there. So I'm going to have Shannon take a roll call vote.
Wait, Diane, could we have some discussion before the vote?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Discussion, yes.
Okay. I would encourage folks to either send it back through the tag process. Again, we're already late on this, so there's no point in putting something forward that isn't complete yet. I would encourage folks to vote against this motion and either fully put it back through the tag process or to accept option B and taking out the deletion of that first paragraph, which really seemed to be the only dispute from the discussion. So that's all I've got to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, and just to clarify this, and I appreciate that, Andrew, but just to clarify, this document was approved at the last meeting to file the CR 102. So that's where we're at currently now. So you can vote any way you want. So just so you know that that's where we're at. That's how to make that any clearer.
Just for clarity, if the vote is to adopt option 1 or option A, this is again, as Diane mentioned, the CR 102 that was filed, it was posted for comment. So the staff will, it's a vote for adoption, and the staff will file the CR 103 with the language in CR 102. This is how the process will go.
Can I propose a friendly amendment? That we clean up the language to either say vehicle certification or truck permit, or that we clean up that language so that it's consistent throughout the proposal if this passes.
Okay, you want the language that says permit or certification? Is that what
I want us to be consistent within the language, and I don't think it's substantive, but to be consistent, whether we call it a truck certification or a vehicle permit, so that this reads top to bottom with one phrase and not a mix of phrases, because I think that causes confusion.
Okay, does the maker of the motion agree with that?
I think as long as there isn't some significant difference in the permit certification language, and that's the reason for what might look like an inconsistency. I guess I don't have my head wrapped around that completely to, completely, understand that. And so that would be my only concern. And if Ken or someone else would like to speak on that, maybe they can fill me in on that, or Andrew probably knows, or anyone from industry. Is there something there with the certification / permit that there's a reason why there is an inconsistency there?
No, I think the reason there just goes to show that not all jurisdictions issue these permits. So that's, just more, proof that something needs to be done here. One additional thing that I would like to point out is that the language in B has been used. I believe that's what they're using and Ken, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to say anything that's not true, but in Seattle and Puget Sound fire, this is the option B is consistent with what is being done there.
No.
The certification or permit language?
No, you have to get more specific. We are not enforcing option B. So
okay,
we don't have all of that language in Seattle. We have some language that's in option A, but we don't have all that language in B.
Okay, I'm going to bring it back. There was a friendly amendment to change the language referring to, correct me if I'm wrong, Jill, permit and certification to make that consistent throughout the document. Tony was asking the question as the maker of the motion, if that was consistent. Ken, can you answer that specific question? Would that make a difference in the document? If
I would ask that on your screen that you're showing, you go up to that section in option A that you want to make the change in and not show the option B part. So where in option A do you want to make that change?
What section is it referring to, the permit or certification that you're concerned about?
Yeah, so here it's referred to as a permit, and in many cases it's a permit. And then I think later in down
Permits, okay.
and then I think it was in the next one. Truck certification.
Certification. Is that the permit or?
Scroll down. Yeah, truck certification right there. And that's, I mean, it seems like right where the hand is, it says truck certification. And it seems like if we really want a vehicle permit, we should, every time we say truck certification, change it to vehicle permit, if in fact that's the same thing.
I'm looking to you, Ken.
I'm looking to see where he's seen in this document here, where it says vehicle versus truck, because I see truck certification in the 1.2.2. I see, but I don't see where there's the conflict. And maybe you can help me out.
It says vehicle permit in the first sentence. It is. Yeah.
But we're talking about two different things, right?
Yeah. Because it might not be a truck certificate. So yeah, I mean, because it's vehicles. There's the 3 types of vehicles. So I would agree that using the term vehicle is probably better than truck certification, if just for nomenclature.
Krista is raising.
Yeah, there's 4.
And just to clarify on this, we are not, or is the jurisdiction certifying the operator? Because that's how that reads.
Krista, you have your hand up.
It's on a different issue. So if you want to finish up this question of vehicle permit versus truck certification, or just permit versus certification, I'll speak after that.
Okay. Phil?
And that's what I was trying to clarify, is because if you read the title, local authorities having jurisdiction not offering operator or truck certification. So it's operator certification or truck certification. And if you change that to truck or vehicle permit, it says not offering operator permit or vehicle permit. So that's why I'm asking, what is the intent? Are we certifying the operator and the truck, or are we permitting the operator and the truck? That's how your sentence breakdown goes. Does everybody follow what I'm indicating there?
Sure, Glenn. As the maker of the original motion, and because of this conversation and kind of where it's going, at this time, I would not like to adopt that change, because I think there's too much confusion surrounding it, and I don't think this is the time or place.
Okay. All right. So the original motion stands. Phil, I'm going to recognize you next.
Diane, before we vote on this, can someone, yourself or whoever, explain exactly what voting for or against this motion means?
So the motion is to adopt the original document, which is option A or 1, which is the document that we passed onto a CR 102 last time, and that was posted. And what we're discussing today is just the testimony we received from last month that we have to consider. But the motion is to adopt the original document, posted it to us as a CR 102 with the punctuation changes. So it was just some numbering and stuff like that. It wasn't any language change. So that's the motion, and we did get a second on that. So that's what we're discussing.
Voting against this means what?
Voting against it would mean that you don't want to adopt the document that was posted as here 102.
Okay. Let me ask another question here about the weighting of the, typically the weighting of the testimony.
Okay. Well,
how much weight does the testimony typically bear on the vote?
Well, that's up to each individual council members what they think the impact should be. Okay, Eileen, you've had your hand up for a little bit here. Okay, how about Jay?
I have a question for staff as a newbie member. When we're talking about adopting option A and that rule is coming into effect, but we also are aware of some changes that need to be considered to clarify. What's the timing of how quickly those would be expected to happen as part of the next cycle?
If we have no changes or editorial changes, staff can file CR 103, I don't know, Monday, next week. And it will become effective, I think, 30 days after a filing. But if we are making bigger changes, then it changes the game. So there are different requirements if there are substantial changes. Right.
And if we adopt today, but recognize that we have other things that are part of the next cycle, when is that next opportunity to run some of these changes through the full tag process?
It goes to the regular process for 2021 building code. So currently we are receiving code change proposals, and the tag, the building code tag or the fire code tag also can continue working on this proposal and end up with a proposal for 2021 codes.
Thank you.
Micah?
Thank you. I figured I'd start raising my hand. I tend to butt in too much. Just for discussion on the motion, I'm going to be voting against the motion. I think that Andrew in the public comments have made some changes that could or should be addressed by the tag. So I'm going to vote against the motion and try to get this sent back to the tag for a combination and a repair. That way we don't have to come back with another code change proposal in 2 weeks to try to change the 2021.
Okay, Eileen, I'll give you another chance here. I think you're...
Yes, thank you so much. Sorry, I was having difficulties with my headphones. So thank you so much. I just wanted to flag that we did work on this language with Karen from Seattle Fire and John Napier from Puget Sound. And they both agreed that the language from the tiered permitting section merits and warrants a conversation at the fire tag level. Again, this language will help streamline the burdensome permitting process that both industry and fire regulators experience. We can do this right the first time instead of putting language forward that didn't or doesn't meet what the legislature has intended for streamlined permitting. So I would urge the council to consider moving this back to the fire tag and vote no on this motion. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Krista, is it, do you want to step in now or?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question for Todd, clarifying what punctuation change. I'm just having difficulty. Were you talking about the renumbering? But that is only applicable to item B because they're striking that first section, or was there something else that I'm missing? Just trying to be clear.
Yeah, Chris, I think you meant Tony, and I was just talking about the first punctuation on 570712. It says this was not in the original public testimony, just a correction that needed to be made if adopted.
That's only if adopted option B because they
understood.
strike that section. That changes the numbering.
Thank you, Krista. So I would amend that then, amend my motion to not include that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's clear enough. All right. Any other comments before we vote?
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Let's see. Caroline?
Yeah, so I just had one more clarification about the options in front of us. So if we adopt option A, it goes to the CR 103 and the language in option A becomes effective in 30 days or so. Or we do not adopt, or we could adopt option B and the same thing does not happen because those are two substantial changes. And so it has to go through an amendment process of some sort. So that's the second option. The third option is we send it back to the tag and they rework it and it comes, a new CR 102 gets filed at that point. And then the fourth option is no action. Somebody has to submit a code change proposal by May 31st. So it becomes part of the 2021
No, we've already saw
cycle.
CR 102. So what we're voting on today is if we do adopt the CR 102 document, then that goes posted to that goes to the CR 103. If it does not pass, then we have a few options at that point. So I guess that's kind of where we're at. And it's not an all or nothing thing, even if you voted to adopt option 2. I mean, that's the option 2 was just to make it easier for you to see the testimony, how it fit in to the document. That makes sense. Tony, you had your hand up. Did you have any other comments?
Yeah, just I just wanted to mention that, and maybe someone can help me out with this. And Stoyan, maybe you know this, or someone from staff does. Part of the reasoning for adopting the first option, and the reason that my motion is stated as such, is because of the legislative deadline that we had on this. Stoyan, do you remember what that date was? I thought it was January 1, which, but maybe I'm wrong, or maybe Andrew remembers.
I think it was July, but I'm not sure. I don't have it open. Let me. Krista, can you remember the effective date?
No, I don't recall.
Part of the I believe that part of the reason we ended up with what we did on the originally proposed document for option A is because we went round and round with industry in our fire tag meetings. And I don't doubt that, I know that there has been conversation that's taken place between industry and other organizations. It sounds like City of Seattle's been involved in those, and the Washington State Association of Fire Marshals. And I think everyone's in agreement that option A, at the fire tag level anyway, that option A is not, it's not a completed thing yet. There still is a lot of work to do. But I'm concerned that that's exactly what it's going to be, is a lot more work. So in front of us today, I feel like we have an option to have something to get started, or we send this back to the tag. And, you know, I don't know how close we are. I guess that's my major concern, is by sending it back, then we are extending what we're already overdue on based on a legislative deadline that we're already past due on. And that's my concern. And so that's the reason for wanting to move forward, is that we would have something and the ability later on to continue to work on this at the tag level. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
And I see here in the bill, the rules and associated provisions shall be finalized and available for local jurisdictions by May 2021.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, that's this month. So thanks, Tony. That clarifies that. And just so everybody knows, I mean, this has gone through the tag process. It's gone through the public hearing process. We did file the CR 102, so it's gone through the process like it's supposed to. I mean, and that's why we're here today, to consider the testimony, make any changes. We do have a motion and a second on the table. and to adopt the original document. So that's kind of where we're at. Micah, do you have another comment?
Yeah, just based on the going back to the tag issue, these comments or these changes, in my opinion, have come up since we had the public comment hearing or meeting. And just because we have a legislative deadline doesn't mean we should just overlook the public comments and not address them, whether that is here like we're doing now or our recommendation of sending it back to the tag. I understand there's legislative deadlines, but I would be surprised if those legislators wanted us to overlook public comments just to meet a deadline. That's my opinion.
We did have the public comment last month. You were there. Yeah.
No, I understand. No, I'm saying is these proposed changes are coming from what was put forth in public comment.
Right.
And if the public comments need to be addressed, I think we should do that, even if that means going back to the tag and not have the overriding concern being the legislative deadline.
Okay, no, I understand that, but just to be clear, that's why we had the public testimony last time, and we were all supposed to consider that and bring it to the table this meeting so we could discuss that, which we've been doing, and consider if the testimony changes that document. So it has had the process. I'm not trying to discourage that. I'm just trying to point out that we are following the right process.
Diane, if I may.
Yes.
So yes, it did go through the process. We could vote to push it through, ignoring all the public testimony. It is worth pointing out that with COVID, the tag process did get started very late. It was many months after the legislature passed the bill requiring this. So there wasn't a lot of opportunities to meet. So that was compressed down. So what came out of there, as Tony had mentioned, really wasn't a great final product, which is why work kept going on after that, which is why there was so much public testimony, which, as Micah pointed out, should be considered in this vote. Thank you.
Okay, no, absolutely. So Jim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And maybe I missed it, but did the tag make a defined recommendation for us?
Yes, the recommendation was what they put forward in the original document that we filed as a CR 102. That came out of the tag.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Can I get a further clarification on that tag question?
Sure.
Was that recommendation before or after the public comment hearing?
Well, no, it came out of the tag as the original document. Then last month we took public testimony.
So the tag has not reviewed changes based on the public comment. Is that correct?
The tag never does.
No.
The council does.
And just for clarification, Chair, industry was in on every one of those tag meetings, and these same issues were brought up, maybe not in a public comment, form, but all of these were discussed during the tag process. And what we came up with was the option A.
And this is Stoyan again for clarification purposes. The proposal option B that you see now is very similar to the proposal that was discussed during this 2 or 3 TAC meetings that I attended. So it's not absolutely the same, but it's very close to the one that was introduced in the past.
Sure, and Diane, if I may, it's just worth pointing out too that the size of the tag is very small. So I believe it was 3 votes, if I remember correctly. So I remember 2 people decided this. So keep that in mind when voting.
Okay, no, thank you, Andrew. Jim, did you have another question?
Sorry, I'll lower my hand.
Oh, okay, all right, good. Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Todd.
Oh, Todd, there you are. Hi.
Thank you. Similar question as Carolyn. I'm not sure I understood. So if we vote to deny this motion, I understand the motion, then a second action is expected on what to do next. Whether it's accept, adopt group B or I mean, sorry, option B or send it back to the tag.
So you will see on the screen, this is the RCW with the variance, and we are on item 1. So when you read below, if an agency contemplates making a substantial variance from a proposal rule described in published notice, it may file a supplemental notice with the code revisor meeting the requirements of RCW 34. So these are the standard procedures, and reopen the proceedings for public comment. So we filed the supplemental notice and we opened for a public comment, similar to what happened with the CR 102. Or the agency may withdraw the proposed rule and commence in new rule-making proceedings to adopt a substantially different rule. If a new rule-making proceedings is commenced, relevant public comment receiving regard. So this one option is the substantial variance from the proposed rule, and we filed a supplemental notice. And the other option for the council is just drop the proposal and start another rulemaking. Or I think we can go back to the TAC discussing minor changes to the CR 102.
And I can make the decision.
And
right.
Well, the council needs to
the council
vote on it. And I think Dirk is here. If he can.
Well, you know what? Okay.
A little clarity on the procedure.
Actually, I have been. I've been biding my time to just make one point.
Okay. I got you on the right time there.
Yeah, and I don't want to take too much time to do this, though. So the statute that we're talking about here is the Administrative Procedure Act, which governs rulemaking. When Stoyan's talking about a substantial variance, what that in having to redo the process, what that means is basically the equivalent of filing a new CR 102. So if substantial changes are made to what we're calling option A here, which are the proposed rules, whether that is a lot of changes or just one substantial change, you would have to go back to the drawing board for the rulemaking process on that substantial change. And so that would require filing a new form, having a new rulemaking hearing, taking new testimony and comments on that, and then having another meeting like this to decide whether you're going to adopt that rule or not. So that's the option. So for anything under option B, as we're calling it, that would be a substantial change. That would be the path that would need to be followed.
So Derek, if this option 1 were not to pass as chair, I'm just saying this, could I direct that it goes back to the tag, or would it have to be a council decision to just go ahead and file a CR 102?
My recommendation would be, if you take a vote now and the council does not vote to adopt the proposed rules, option A, then there should be a discussion regarding appropriate next steps. Options could be to go refer the matter back to the tag. Options could be to adopt changes to the proposed rule along the lines of what was offered in public testimony on option B. Or you could do nothing and put this off hold for another meeting.
Okay, what would happen then if we just if nothing happened, no action was taken?
You will continue to have a CR 102. Actually, that's a good question. So if you say, no, we're not going to adopt these rules at the rulemaking hearing.
We would have the same discussion next month?
Yeah, well, so you would have to make a determination of whether or not the vote would have to be on whether you're pushing off the vote for another month on these rules. If you reject these proposed rules, then you can't move forward with the proposed rules. And you would have to decide whether you want to refile the rules or some variation.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If the motion as stated passes, would that kick us into, would that be considered substantial?
Well, we're voting on the original, which
with minor clerical. Yeah. So right. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make that abundantly clear.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, technical revisions, housekeeping revisions, renumbering, adding a comma, striking a double parenthesis or something like that. Those are not substantial, and staff can go ahead and make those changes without having to get permission from anybody.
Right.
Okay.
Jill, the motion was modified, Jill. That that change to the numbering was not necessary. That's only if we adopt option B.
Right.
So the motion was modified to as shown for option A.
Okay.
Right. Okay. It was back to the original motion. And so I didn't have to ask for the second to be revived. So we've got a motion. Okay, I think let's go ahead. I think everybody understands what we're doing here. Let's just go forward with the vote. Now, this is a motion to adopt the original document that's posted, option 1, the Sierra 102, with no changes. And we're going to take a roll call vote. And so it's a yay or nay.
Andrew?
I abstain.
Oh, that's true. Sorry. Jay?
Yes.
Al? Yes. Jim?
Yes.
Robert Graper, did you attend? Tony?
Yes.
Chell?
Yes.
Phil?
No.
Corey?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Micah?
No.
Todd?
Aye. Yes.
8.
So it's 8-2.
8-3. Well, 8-2.
8 to
1
2.
abstain.
Oh, and one abstention. So the motion carries. Okay, so we did vote to adopt the Sierra 102, which will move on to the Sierra 103. So, okay, well, thank you, everyone. That was lively. That was good. That was good. You know, and that's not the end of the road. I mean, so. Okay. Yeah. Okay, before we get into the other ones, which should, I think, be not too bad, we're going to take a 5-minute break. So refresh, go do your thing, and we'll be back at 11:55. Thank you. All right. We are back at it. Welcome back, everyone. I'm just going to assume everybody's back with us. So we'll know where we're going. So we're going to move on to the next item under rulemaking decisions. That is the 2018 IBC EV charging. And we're going to bring it up on the screen. This is the WAC 5150-0427, section 427, the electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And if everybody can remember back, this item, back a while back, we went through this and discussed all the language. So we need to go through this again. And so this would be moved on to a Sierra 102?
Sierra 103, Sierra 102 is filed. There wasn't any public testimony.
Oh, okay.
So the vote is to adopt it if the council members have no other comments.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to bring it up. And this was the document that we discussed and voted on to move it to the Sierra 102. So that's where this is right now. We're going to take the time and go through it, see if anybody has any additional comments. We didn't get any public testimony on this. So this is the document that was posted, and no proposed changes to it. But obviously the council has the option of discussing any part of it today.
Micah.
So, all right, Micah.
Oh, sorry, I meant to take my hand down. I was trying to catch the meeting for another topic before we started this one. I can bring it up under other business. So I'm taking my hand down.
Okay. So we'll just scroll through this. The scope is the provisions of this section shall apply to the construction of new buildings. And regarding vehicle charging infrastructure, talk about electrical rooms. And then charging infrastructure. And if you'll remember back on the discussion, we talked about adding that installation of a number 208, 240 amp, and there was some discussion on whether that would apply to everything. So put in a circuit or equivalent. And then we have an exception, and then we added the section load management infrastructure. Okay, we'll stop right there. Carolyn.
Thank you. So I had a question in here, you know, as big picture 427.2, if you scroll up, kind of talks about the 10% of parking spaces needing actual chargers installed. And then 427.3 is about providing infrastructure for 20% of the total parking spaces. And then 427.4 item 1 is kind of more clarification about the 10%. And then the way I read 427.4 item 2, the additional service capacity space for future, the second sentence starts, the service capacity and raceway size shall be designed to accommodate the future installation of the 208, 240, 4, and then this is the part, circuit or equivalent electric vehicle charging stations specified in section 427.2. But it seems like this paragraph is about the additional service capacity, yet it's referring back to 427.2, which was about the actual 10% you needed to install. So I just wanted to ask if that needed to refer to 427.3, or what the thinking was there for those folks that may have worked on this. Thank you.
Oh, I think what it's saying is that, yes, it has to be designed to accommodate the future installation of the number of electric vehicles charging stations specified in section 427.2, which goes back to, oh, wait a minute, go back to the 4.2. Yeah, I had it clear in my head and now I confuse myself. Yeah, you're right. That does make sense. Does anybody else read it different? Or the way we're reading it?
We received a few emails and phone calls about the same.
Oh, really?
The same thing.
Oh, okay.
I was going to do it later, but.
Oh, okay. So maybe that should be 427.3.
I have my hand up.
Corey, sorry.
Yeah, I attended this tag, and I think they needed to use me to get the quorum to discuss the stuff. And so the issue that came up there and what they're talking about in 427.4 was the circuit or the equivalent, which is referenced in 427.2 when it says you have to be in compliance with section 427.3, 4, and 5. So it's the circuit. You have 10% of the stalls have to be made available for electric parking, but 20% need to be in the electrical room, 20% or enough electrical capacity for 20% of those parking stalls. It needs to be provided in the electrical room. So they'll put in another panel and be ready to go do the work out in the parking lot. And so that circuit that runs out there, that was the question. There was a lot of discussion, I recall, and I believe Micah was there too.
Would you go, Micah?
There were issues because if when you're building a building, you have to run the circuits out there to where a charging station would be placed in those additional, let's for instance, just say there was 100 parking stalls. 10 of those parking stalls would need to have electric power available when you build the building, and 10 others would have to be ready to have the device installed. So the circuit would have to be run underground and a box be there and ready to go to add it.
Okay. Okay, so that, the way you stated it, that 427 referring to 4272 would be proper. Because it's just going back to saying, you know, when you have to put these in, it has to comply with where you're putting them, right? Or something like that. Yeah. I mean, what you said made sense. It is kind of confusing.
We spent probably a longer discussion than we just had on the mobile fueling. It was a long discussion with a lot of issues because the way the verbiage was.
Okay. Let's see, Chell, you have your hand up.
Yeah. Well, 427.2 does refer to 4273 and 4 and 5. I think 427.4 subsection 2 refers to the extra 10%, and that needs to be provided with the additional capacity. And so it is confusing to reference 427.2 here because we're specifically referring to 427.3 and that the other infrastructure for the stuff between 10 and 20%. So I think it's confusing because one could read it as it's written as you know, future meters, panels, capacity, or space for what is under 427.2, which is not future, it's now. So I think if I read the statute correctly, it's confusing to have 427.2 as the reference right here. I think it should be 427.3.
Corey?
I think part of the problem there is that in 427.5, it talks about the infrastructure being the 10. It references all three of those sections because there's different information. I think point 4 is asking for the minimum number of 40 amp circuits or the equivalent, right? So that the power in the electrical room is available to go out on the circuits that are going to be used later. They don't have to run the wire, but they have to have the power there in the box ready to go so that they can run and get those hooked up. And so because it's referencing all three of these subsequent 3, 4, and 5, that's why they went back to 2, was so that all three of those sections would be referenced in it. And it is confusing. I don't know if there's a better way to clarify it and include all that information.
I think if you referenced 427.3 and 427.5, that would be clearer than referencing 427.2 because we're talking about additional surface capacity.
I think at this point I would tend to agree. I think we were all getting pretty wore out with the conversation, and I can't remember the other two council members that were in there.
Okay, so what you're suggesting is in item number 2, referring back specified in section 427.3 as opposed to 2. Is that right, Shell?
Yes, 3 and 5, because
okay,
the language here is future installation and the number of that, and the numbers do reference 3 and 5.
Oh, okay. Yeah, 3 and 5, which we haven't got to yet. So let's go down to 427.5. Let's see what that is. This is talking about accessible parking spaces. In section 427.2 and 427.5. Yeah, okay. Corey, you have your hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I needed to put that down. I
Oh,
apologize.
okay, no problem. So, Micah, are you on here? Did you go away?
I am, yes.
Oh, there you are. Because I know you were heavily involved in this discussion early on and participated. And I think one of the issues you brought up, which led to a long discussion on the accessible. Are you okay with this language?
So short answer to that is kind of, but I'm going to be voting against the proposal because the accessible stuff and 427.1 scoping is just not enforceable language. And so, but I don't have a problem with the change that was just made to section 427.4, referring to both of those, 427.3 and 427.5. But overall, I have an issue with the whole proposal. So,
okay.
But again, I think it comes back to something we couldn't fix based on the legislation, which had holes in it as well, unfortunately.
Unfixable, Micah? There's not code language that can meet the legislative intent and the accessibility requirements at the federal level?
Well, no, I think the accessibility stuff will be fine, except, you know, there were some holes in missing legislation. I think it was brought up about the current RCW that says you can't park in a electric vehicle charging spot that's designated as such unless you're an electric vehicle. And with the accessibility one, if it's, you know, that's an accessibility stall that also has electric vehicle charging, but can you use that accessibility stall and have a non-electric accessible vehicle type stuff? So there were some holes in there. And then the other hole was in the scoping where it's talking about for groups A, E, and M, where spaces are designated for employee parking. Nobody designates that. There's nothing in the code that charges or requires an applicant to designate employee parking, and really how is that even possible on something that's like a shell and core building? In other words, you've got a shell of a building, but you don't have tenants. So you don't even know who employees are going to be. So I think there's just gaps in this overall code language. And some of that stems from what was required in the legislative package. So therefore, really, it can't, you know, we can't, I think that was the argument, is you got to follow legislative guidelines, and they were just lacking. So those were where my holes kind of come in that I don't think we can fix in this current language. I know there are some things coming into the 2021 ICC codes, and there are several changes that were proposed to the 2024 ICC codes during this last code cycle that occurred, that's occurring right now, actually. We just had the committee action hearings for group 1. And so there were several proposals there, but right now I think this is the best we're gonna get. Sorry.
Okay, and I agree with your first one that, yeah, I mean, if you have an ADA stall and you can't park there and it's the last stall available, you're violating the federal law in that case. So the signage would have to be very creative and possibly figure out whether federal or state law is more important.
Correct. And then there's some other issues that jurisdictions have been discussing. There is no clear design in the A117 accessibility standards currently, because we're still under the 09 version, because the 2017 version has not been adopted or updated. That will come into effect the next code in 2021. And so there will be some design criteria in there for that, for providing these electrical charging stations for ADA spaces. But currently there's no clear direction on that as well. So it's almost kind of putting the cart before the horse. Yes, we want this requirement, but we don't have all the other requirements in place. So that's kind of why I'm like, yeah, it's okay for now, but it's not complete or accurate, unfortunately.
There is a conflict in ANSI 117, 2017, in regards to accessible EV chargers with the Washington state law. So this is something that we will be working on. And there is a new bill coming. It was just signed by the governor, HB 1287. So be prepared to start working on it next week, I guess.
So Micah, when I'm reading this, it looks like they took out the part where it's employee parking. I'm not seeing that in there now.
Am I seeing that? And I'm looking at 427.1. Am I looking at an old version? I opened this directly from the website. Exception 2, Group A, Group B, or M, except where employee parking spaces are designated.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody designates employee parking spaces.
You're right.
Again, it's something that you can't enforce that, because there's no other charging language in the code that requires a project to provide or identify employee parking spaces and how to calculate that number.
Right.
So I think the question was, how do I feel about this? I think it's the best we're going to get at this point. So I will still be voting against it, but I don't know what else we're going to do, just because it's bad.
Thank you for your honesty. Let's see, Rod, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I commented on this before, but this all kind of hinges on the last sentence in 427.4, talking about the load management infrastructure. So the National Electrical Code allows you to reduce the size of the service and feeders based on a load management system. And it's based on the premise that not all of the parking spaces are going to be used at the same time, right? But this language in this sentence does not have any specifications about what the parameters are. So you could set up a building with, let's say, 20 electric vehicle charging spaces to allow 5 of them to operate at the same time, and you could size your electrical room and your service based on that 5. But the National Electrical Code does not specify the parameters. And this sentence says the load management infrastructure may be used to adjust the size, and then as allowed by applicable local and national electrical codes. There are no parameters in the National Electrical Code. And so I suspect this would be left up to the local jurisdictions to specify the parameters of the load management system. So it's just something I would point out. There's nothing in this sentence that specifies that you couldn't have 20 electric vehicle spaces, but only have a few of them operating at the same time. And does the council want to go there and specify that? Just a question for you guys.
Right, thank you.
I have another one too while we're thinking about that. The exception right above that calls for future raceways, and it specifies 1-inch diameter cap sleeves. That may or may not be adequate to specify a 1-inch diameter. If a long run goes out to the far end of a parking lot, the conductor may have to be increased based on voltage drop. I would just suggest changing that to cap sleeves of sufficient size and number to accommodate the number of circuits that are required. That's all.
Okay.
I think you're correct there, Rod. Would saying a minimum 1-inch diameter cap sleeve work? That way we only have to add one word.
That'd be fine. It's just
Okay.
that if we specify 1-inch, it may or may not work.
That makes sense. And then I had another question for you on the NEC comment. Can you give us a little more info? So is what you're saying is there's nothing in the NEC that guides you on how to calculate voltage or amperage needs for load management systems? Is that what you're indicating? Or am I wrong?
What it says is when you are specifying the service size for a building, you are allowed to reduce the service size based on a load management system. And it says where an automatic load management system is used, the maximum equipment load on the service and feeder shall be the maximum load permitted by the automatic load management system. So it says you can reduce it based on the load permitted by that load management system, but nothing in this rule specifies what the parameters are. How many spaces are permitted to be operated at the same time if you have a requirement for 20 spaces?
Okay. So there just needs to be more clarification, and what you're saying is the load management system itself will designate how that design is done, not the NEC.
Correct.
Okay.
The NEC allows the reduction to be made based on the settings of the load management system, but it does not specify the settings of the load management system, if that makes sense.
It does totally. Thank you. You answered my question. Appreciate that.
Corey?
Thank you. I had a question on that. Wouldn't that get, if it was getting a load management system, does that get quantified and regulated through the permitting process, through the electrical permit for the building? Wouldn't they assess what you'd be able to do for that system?
Yes. So when the design is done, someone would have to specify how many of those spaces are to be operated at the same time. And there are no parameters in the National Electrical Code to specify that. So we would defer to the designer to say, we have designed this system so that it will only allow 5 spaces to operate at one time. And that's how we would base the load calculation for the service. But the National Electrical Code doesn't specify how many spaces are allowed to be operating at the same time. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just wondering if we can have a load management, add verbiage to where all of them have to work at the same time, and then that fixes it, if it's a way to add it to that paragraph about load management.
Well, you could. Then you're you are considering, are all of them going to be operated at the same time? And is that practical? So.
But it would remove the issue if we made, because theoretically they could be. It just depends on it seems to me like there would be the likelihood that they would all be being used at the same time. So if we made it a requirement, I believe the 1-inch conduit thing is accurate. If they pull, I don't know how they can, I don't know what the rules are for how many, if they can split a larger conduit in the ground. I believe 1-inch is required for 40 amp circuit.
That would be the minimum. But like I said, if you had a longer run out to the end of a parking lot, you may have to increase the wire size to accommodate for voltage drop. So in that case, it may not be large enough.
I see. Yeah.
You know, if you said of sufficient size and number, or minimum of 1-inch, that'd be fine.
Jay, you have your hand up.
As a owner of an electric vehicle, I definitely support the language in the load management that would clarify that all of the charging stations need to be able to be used at once. At least in my area, we're seeing enough of an adoption that actually finding open charging is an issue. These often are used all the time. I would note that that the charge level can vary, so that certainly if load management is necessary, it could be at a lower amperage that happens when all the spaces are being used at the same time. Thanks.
Other discussion? Do we have any public comments? Oh, there's no public. Oh, we're just doing the real meeting. Sorry, take it back. All right. Well, hearing none, I'll be looking for a motion. So we need to either adopt this, move it on to CR 103, or make changes and move it on, or voting altogether.
I have a question, and that's to the earlier comment. Is there language that we could readily adopt or include that would specify load management to a greater degree than it is now, maybe imperfectly, but to a greater degree than it is now? I think 100% might be too much simultaneous use, but does anybody have language we could readily adopt that would put more specificity in here?
That's a good question. I think the question I would have, if we could, was the load management brought up in the legislation, and what does that legislation read on load management? Do we have that we could share on screen?
No, I think, wasn't this added? Stoyan, did you have a comment?
I need to open it.
Okay.
I think it's I think the language is from the bill, but I don't have it open, so I need to open it.
Okay. We're looking it up.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
It also says, as allowed by applicable local and national electric codes. So I'm assuming the local code would govern that and it would be part of the permitting process for what's allowed. And I don't know if we have an electrician in-house, but is there a code that governs load management systems for something similar. It may not do it for electric parking, but is there something in the code that would govern it?
So nothing specified in the national code. So it would be up to the local jurisdiction to specify that. And I don't know of any specific local electrical codes that specify that.
Okay.
I found that. Yeah. Okay.
Well, then I would think we would want to just strike it. If there are no national and local codes, this whole paragraph is void.
This is Toyan. I want to add, I have little experience with it. I developed it for California in the residential code. The load management system here, how it's applied is different because it doesn't have the scoping. In California, it's 100% of the EV charging spaces shall be available for use at the same time. So this is how you calculate the service. And the load management system is allowed, but the load management system shouldn't shut on and off different charging stations. You can use the load management system by managing different load. For example, lighting. If your chargers are not fully used, you can switch the load to something else. So the load management system can be used even with 100% requirements for the EV charging spaces. It just needs a little tweaks in the language. Again, personal opinion based on what I've done before.
So did you say in California it is 100% simultaneous EV use?
Yes. So when you calculate the service for multifamily, it's specific to residential, but the commercial has similar language. So the requirement is you calculate your service based on 100% use of the EV charging stations. So again, you can use the load management system to calculate the electrical load, but you have to take into account 100% of the load that is needed for the EV charging stations.
So it appears that this language is in there talking about the load management infrastructure, and very similar to what is in the proposal.
I guess I had always assumed the load management was specific for the EV system, but in rereading it now and hearing what you're saying, Stoyan, I'm actually now kind of interpreting the load management system to refer to the building load management, not necessarily the EV charging load management. And that's making me think that it's not an out for the number of EV charging stations that require power simultaneously. It's more of that the building can, while powering all EV charging stations simultaneously, use load management software to decrease other loads. So that changed for me based on the testimony in the last 10 minutes.
When you read the bill, it doesn't really clarify if the load management system is intended for the charging stations only, or it's a load management system for the entire electrical system on this particular building.
Yeah, and I think that language that we added says the same thing. It doesn't talk about the stations. It talks about the required building electric service equipment, right, and circuits.
A load management infrastructure may be used to adjust the size and capacity of the required building electric service equipment and circuits on the customer facilities. So I don't think it's specific to the EV charging stations.
So maybe that makes more sense.
I think that question goes back to the intent as well. And I'm not very familiar with the EV load management, but my understanding from them previously is that they were specific for EV charging, in that system, I believe, would identify the needs of the vehicle and can adjust the capacity required. In other words, you could have a vehicle that needs a greater amperage to charge than another one, or has a greater need, and that load management infrastructure adjusts accordingly. And I think it can go, you know, it does time and need and everything else. And so I'm not sure that the language, even in the legislation, is capturing what the intent is. And so I do have some concerns with that, especially the added concern of the information that Rod brought to us from LNI.
If you have the electric vehicle chargers already available, there are many, well, I don't want to use names, but there are nice, really good managing systems that they calculate how much charge you need for this particular car, so they adjust accordingly. But in this case, we don't have only charging stations, we have charging spaces available for future installation of charging stations. So in this case, you don't know what kind of charger you will have, and you cannot predict the load management system. So when you're calculating the service, you're calculating based on what is available at the moment. You don't know the rest of the chargers, the 10%. You have just the conduit, and that's
Sure.
it.
Right.
So I guess the question Diane had is, should we change the language? So maybe we need to change that long sentence to just say something that load management systems shall be permitted, and leave it at that. And then that kind of opens the door that obviously they can be permitted and used, and then the design will dictate how that's done. Does that kind of help the language? Anybody?
Well, Micah, the language is directly from the RCW right now. So
sure, but that doesn't mean we have to have that exact language in there. I think I think the RCW is saying it shall be used or can be used this way, but I don't think we have to have the verbatim language from legislation in the code change.
So, but it just kind of seems open-ended if you just say load management infrastructure may be used.
And that is true, but I according to what Rod just gave us in the information he provided, saying that the load management is really dictated by the load management system that the applicant brings in, then this code is saying to the code official that load management shall be permitted for these installations, but the system is going to dictate how that's designed and operates, not the NEC as indicated by Rod. Is that correct? And Rod, you can clarify if I'm wrong, but is that what I'm understanding from you?
Yeah, and the context in the NEC is in the electric vehicle charging article, and it's talking about electric vehicle chargers. And it allows a load management system to determine how many of those chargers operate at the same time. So if you install a electric vehicle charging system, load management system on a building that supplies 20 electric vehicle chargers, you could have that load management system only allow one to operate at a time. And if you install the load management system like that, you would only have to calculate one electric vehicle charger into the service load calculation. There's no parameters in the code determining how many of those spaces must operate at the same time. So it really, if you don't specify that, it makes this whole section unenforceable, really, because a load management system could be installed to allow a minimum number to operate at one time.
Okay. Shannon, can I get you to, I'm not sure if I'm seeing the most updated screen. Can you scroll down to this section that we're seeing? I'm not sure where we are.
Todd, you have your hand up, and maybe you could change the color of your hand. I can't see it very well.
Yeah, that's a good point. We need a bright red one. You're right. Thank you. So if I understand correctly, though, Rod, thank you. Your concerns are at the system scale of the charging system and not at the building scale. Whereas because I also interpreted it as this meant load management at the building scale.
Yeah, we're talking about this whole discussion, and this section in the WAC is talking about electric vehicle chargers and how you calculate the building load based on the number of electric vehicle chargers. And so a load management system that I believe this is referring to is a system that's referred to in the National Electrical Code that allows the system to determine how many electric vehicle chargers are being used at one time and calculate the building load, the additional building load for electric vehicle charging infrastructure based on that.
Right, and I'm not clear yet from this discussion whether we are talking about load management for the building load based off 100%, use of the charging system, right? Like to Stone's point, and do we understand what the intent is? Is there a way to clarify that?
My thoughts are that we need to come back with something that is more substantive than we have right now. In terms of requiring, because the whole idea of oversizing the building electrical service is such that buildings will be able to provide EV when, we know in about 10 years, majority of the cars are probably going to be sold, are probably going to be EVs, and they will need charging at lots of spaces. And it's hard to imagine that they don't mean it's a large percentage of the cars being vehicles being simultaneously charged. And I think, to the point of, well, if the service is size only for 1 out of 20, that seems like it would not meet the intent of the legislation. So I think in the code writing process, we should put some guardrails on that.
What do you mean by guardrails, Jill?
I mean, a minimum number of simultaneously charged vehicles, probably by a percentage or through some other means.
So would your current sentence not indicate all charging spaces?
If we thought
if you don't indicate a minimum.
Yeah, I think it 100% is I think a perfectly good answer, but we should make that clear.
Clear.
Code.
And I think to speak a little more to my change, I was only saying where the load management infrastructure shall be permitted. That pretty much says exactly what the first 5 words of the current sentence in legislation say, which is load management infrastructure may be used. The rest of that is just additional information, but we're keeping the same intent with that modification. And I do agree that we should have some specification like Jill indicates. Do you have a number, Jill?
No, I don't. I was suggesting that perhaps we come up with a number, and probably not in the next 15 minutes. We either suggest that we believe that the legislative intent is 100% and we put that in the code section, or that we convene a small group to try and do a literature survey or other things to figure out what a number would be that meets the legislative intent and is enforceable in code.
And I know we're trying to fix this. I agree with you. We probably shouldn't try to fix it on the fly. I think this would indicate that it would be 100% of the minimum. What is this? The extra 20% for future? I can't remember the number on this one.
20%.
Yeah, so if you're installing 200 stalls, it's 40 stalls that you would need to be charged simultaneously. You'd have infrastructure for that.
Right.
So what you're saying is if you had 20 required stalls, because that's 10% of the parking spaces, you would only require 10% of those 20 to be able to be used at once?
No, I think what we're suggesting is that 100% of the required stalls, both in the 10% category and the 20% category, would require service size to be all used at full capacity at the same time. And load management software could be used to perhaps dim the lighting or turn off the thermal water plant or something like that to provide for that 100% charging capacity. But you wouldn't be able to take credit for, providing only half as much power to all the vehicles at the same time or something, or half as many vehicles.
This is Todd. That's my understanding, would be my preference, unless further argument sways that.
So you're suggesting 100% of the required stations?
Correct.
So you're not really not talking about load management, right?
Well, I think I'm going to the load management at the building scale, which is not load management, which means 100% of the EVs are being charged at the same time. But the building management software could perhaps turn off
the
or
light,
turn down certain systems within the building to be able to do that for those moments when all the stalls are being charged.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'm wondering, is it possible to add a sentence at the end of the load management paragraph that states 100% of all EV chargers installed in parking lots will be fully powered? Does that clarify it enough, or can we do that?
Yeah, leaving the load management infrastructure shall be permitted to adjust of the building electric service equipment, and then add that sentence about 100% of the vehicles. Yeah, I like that. Well, I mean, that.
If we said 100% of the EV vehicle chargers installed, that would include the 10% they have to do up front and the other 10% for the futures. If there is an EV charger installed in a parking lot, it has to be fully charged. All 100% of them have to be fully able to run at the same time.
I like the idea of adding a sentence. I would say, I would write it a different way and say, load management infrastructure, cannot be used to reduce the total electrical charge for the total charge of all, or the total electricity requirement for all stalls being used simultaneously, or something like that.
Shell, does that what about optional stalls then? I could see someone using a load management system, obviously, and creating additional stalls beyond the minimum requirement, right?
For I guess for all stalls required per this section, or required per 427.2. And then I put the word load management infrastructure before the word cannot.
And then would you take out the rest of that just because it doesn't pertain to charging stations anymore?
Well, but it does, I think it is important because as we get more grid interactive buildings, which are going to be more and more part of what we do, there will be demand management and load management. Like you can get a demand management, a hot water heater or other things. And so the buildings, a smart building can, say, hey, we don't need to charge the hot water tank right now because we've got this full capacity on the EV charging. we'll stop the, heating the hot water tank for 15 minutes or something like that. Building management system could be used to do that.
So it's possible that that could come in a future edition of the National Electrical Code. Right now, when you calculate the size of the load, the electrical load on a building, you're not permitted to reduce it based on that. So you have a general lighting load, you have a receptacle load, you have heating and air conditioning loads. And when you calculate the service size of a building, you have to include all of those loads. There's nothing permitted in the code that allows you to reduce the service size if you have a building management system that shuts off some of those loads intermittently. That only exists in the electric vehicle charging article, where you are determining the size of the service required to support the electric vehicle charging system.
This is so complicated.
Oh, it's messy.
It is complicated, and I was going to throw another wrench into it, Jill, and I'm sorry. I don't know if adding that sentence changes the intent of the legislation, since the previous sentence is in the legislation. And that would be my concern. Is that their intent or the legislator's intent, what you just stated in that sentence? And I don't know. And I don't know if we want to change it on the fly that quickly and not verify that's the intent.
I can't imagine that legislation would get written requiring service size increase for 10% and 20% of parking stalls without the intent that all of those could be charged at the same time. And if it was not all at the same time, I guess I would expect the legislation to include some language about what fraction or something, because I don't know. It's complicated and I haven't fully resolved this.
It is, and I always question the legislation because there's a lot of times it's stakeholders get involved and get a compromise in there. Those that are opposed to this might have gotten this language in there. Does that make sense? Like, yeah, we want to be able to downsize this in some way. And I just question the intent, and I worry that we are not meeting that.
All right, what do we want to do?
Do we have a timeline on this item as well? A short timeline?
July 1st is the implementation date.
And we could okay, so just going back to the last issue, is it my understanding that we could vote to not pass this today and then take it up next meeting?
We can do that, yes. But
and they'll have some time to think about it.
We need staff some direction if we need to do something, or
well, we'd make a motion to, we would, yeah, make a motion one way or the other, not to adopt it or to adopt it. And then if it failed, if we voted to adopt this as written and it failed, then we could move it to next month and have some time to work on this particular language. That's just thrown out as an option. Right?
It seems like if we didn't pass this today, I would prefer to task somebody with something so that we can come back and have a solid idea of what we want to do next month.
Well, it's up to the council. So, we could bring our ideas back and make some suggestions when we've thought it through. And those that have actively participated, I'm sure could come up with some language that we could talk about next time and agree on.
There is a raised hand.
Oh, let's see. Okay, Jay first.
I like the language that's proposed on screen, but in recognizing we're kind of changing some technical things on the fly. So perhaps we could take this and use this as the proposal moving forward to consider for next month for final action.
Somebody else had their hand up. Oh, who's that? Oh, that's Phil. Phil, you're coming through different. Are you muted?
No, can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Okay. I was just kind of in the same vein, wondering if we can't make a motion just to table this until next month. Do we have to make a motion and then vote on passing it or defeating it, only to be bringing it forward?
Can we do that? Can we table it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can bring a motion to pass it as is, pass it with changes, motion to deny it, like, well, no, I guess we don't want to do that, or table it. So, yes, we have that option.
Not a motion to table.
Until next month, until next meeting. Okay, I have a motion.
I would second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and second. That's Robert. Oh, okay, Robert. Oh, okay. Any other discussion questions? Yeah, go ahead.
So I just wanted to, in order to be able to get feedback on this, I just want to make sure that to clarify what it is we're tabling. If we're tabling the proposed amendments that are on screen with the addition of minimum to the exception and the changes to the load management section, I think that's appropriate. That way we have a proposal that we are going to be discussing next month.
Okay, so what we're tabling is the whole CR 102. So we'll come back with some better language, some just suggestions, some recommendations from anybody on the council next meeting. And the option is to change anything. It's because we're tabling the whole document. But it seems like we're concentrating on this one little issue. So let's just leave it at that. But yes, the whole document is tabled.
There is something that we need to check. The CR 102 expires, and I wanna check when CR 102 was filed and if it was 120 or 180 days. So can you start discussing the next item, and I need 5 minutes to check it.
Okay, yeah, it's been a while.
Madam Chair, I have another question.
Okay, yeah.
Is it possible for staff to find some clarity on the intent? Is, I don't know, I guess legislative proponents, or I don't know. Is there any avenue to discover legislative intent behind this, such as, you know, watching videos of the discussions or other things? I don't know if it's possible. I'm just asking.
We can try. We tracked the intent on HB 1287, the EV, the new EV bill. So we listened to the discussion at the Senate floor, and we got an email from the sponsor of the bill. So we can try to do the same, although I don't know how it was done in the previous session, but we can try to do that. I just can't do it right now.
Yeah, I think if we could come back with any more hint of legislative intent regarding, especially the number of spaces simultaneously charged for load management, that would be extremely helpful.
Okay, are we ready for the vote? We're going to do a roll call. Table.
We're going to wait for Stoyan to.
I need to check the filing dates, and I need 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
I'm not
So,
ready yet.
okay. So we'll put that vote on hold. I'm sure that's way against Robert's rules, but we'll just go to the next item and we'll readdress that motion to give Stoyan because that might make a decision or a difference on your decision on the way you vote. Is that okay with everybody? Sure, we're violating rules.
Madam Chair, I don't think there was actually maybe I missed. I don't think there was a pending motion. So
yeah, there's a motion and a second, I believe.
What are they?
Yep, did we? Yeah. I thought it was
yes, Phil Blimley.
Second, right?
Oh, table.
Robert.
Motion for the table.
Oh, Robert, yeah. Okay, yeah, there was a motion and a second.
I want to consider withdrawing the motion and then moving on to the next item and then revisiting.
And I'm acceptable of that as a second.
Okay. We're withdrawing the motion and the second. So we'll move on to the next item and then we'll come back to that. All right, moving on. This is the 2018 IBC and the IRC adult family homes, the 8-bed proposal. And let's see. This is the IBC one. Okay, and they're both same, right? IBC and the IRC, same language. Yeah, it's just addressed in both codes. So what this is the definition. An adult family home, a dwelling licensed by the state of Washington Department of Social and Health Services, in which a person or persons provide personal care, special care, room and board to more than one, but not more than 6 adults who are not related by blood or marriage to the person or persons providing the service. And this is the addition: an existing adult family home may provide services to up to 8 adults upon approval from the Department of Social and Health Services in accordance with RCW 70.128.066. And then it goes on in another section to say the same thing. An existing home, and this is already a CR 102, correct?
CR 102 is filed, yes.
Okay, so we're just talking about moving this to a CR 103. So I'm going to open it up for some discussion, council members. Is this going to be an easy one? All right.
Yes.
Questions, comments, anybody? Micah, did you
I'll
have?
make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second. Todd?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, I'm just going to take a voice call vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Great. Thank you.
I'm ready with answer for that.
Okay, Stoyan, we're going to readdress, we're going to go back to the EV charging and get an answer from Stoyan.
So Krista researched it, and the expiration date for the CR 102 is July 7th. So it's okay if we can have a vote on the next meeting.
Okay, great. We got time. All right, so let's go back to that and get that one taken care of. We've had enough.
Diane, I'll remake the motion to table.
And Bob Hamlin, I would second that again.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I think I'll just take a voice vote. We'll see where we're at with that. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll table it till the next meeting. So be thinking about that, and we'll discuss that section and any other sections you want to discuss. Okay, we're on to 2018 IBC tsunami loads. And we have, and this went on to the CR 102 as well.
CR 102 is filed, yes. And
okay.
we didn't have any testimony for that.
Okay, no
and
testimony for this. Okay.
This one is not driven by a legislature. It's It's not HB, House Bill or Senate Bill.
And this was a result of the hard work of the committee, correct? To come up with this? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is open it up, but Todd, I was wondering if you want to make any comments or anything.
Yeah, just real quick, it stands as is, obviously, as a 102 that had strong support from a very diverse and robust tag. The tag we met last month because the tag now outside of the building council, really under DNR, wants to continue and make improvements and roll into a 2021 proposal for group 2. So they would support this.
So going through this, do you want to just kind of scroll through it on the screen and just see if anybody has any questions, any comments? We'll go through it.
Madam Chair, sorry.
Yes.
This is Todd again. The one thing I would add is that when we talk about minor changes, the areas they think can be improved really relate to the DNR, the reference DNR maps, and then combining, these links essentially with other DNR references such as WUI and so forth. So I think there's just really just improvements rather than major changes proposed into 2021.
Okay. Just keep going down. And I'm hoping that everyone had a chance to read through this anyway, but
I'll also add that it is getting the attention of other states of Oregon and California, and also nationally of the ASE, that they do they're encouraged by this method and might modify the major ASE 7 at some point.
Wow, great, good work.
Well, I don't want to take credit for it, but it is acknowledging the talent of the team.
Okay, all right. So great. So we do have to move this on to a CR 103. So I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to move to CR 103 as submitted.
I'll second. Is this Todd?
Okay, we have a motion second. Any other discussion? All right, I'll just take a voice vote since there isn't any. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you for that. And again, thanks for the hard work on that, Todd. It was a lot. Okay, let's see. We did all those. All right, we are on to item number 7. This is a request for opinion for the residential code 302.2.6 dealing with townhomes or townhouses, excuse me. And it's up on your screen. And who's going to read this?
Well, it came from the labor industries, and they had some issues with enforcement. And we did the research, and we found out that this particular section wasn't filed properly. There was a change on the floor during the council meeting, and section R302.2. Structural independence. The decision was not to adopt this section. However, it wasn't filed. The option 1 was filed. So the question is structural independence, again in section R302.2.6 of townhouse units separated by double walls, no longer required in the Washington State Residential Code? This appears to be the intent of IRC using section R302.2.6 and the definition of townhouse in the model code. And the answer is yes, structural independence of townhouse units separated by double walls is no longer required in the Washington State Residential Code. According to the vote in the November 8, 2019 council meeting, section R302.2.6 should read as follows, and you see the section with the title, and this section is not adopted. This should be the text that appear in white. We did check the minutes. We did check that we listened to the conversation. We found the documents, so we can fix it by filing CR 105. We need to initiate another rulemaking, unfortunately, but it needs to be fixed.
Okay. Yeah, that's the intent. Is there any public comment? Okay, open it up to the council. Any discussion, questions?
I'll jump in since this proposal had my name on it. Yeah, Story is correct. That was the original intent, was to eliminate that section. If you go into the 2018 ICC language, there were so many exceptions to the structural dependence requirement there that the overall intent was, I think the only thing that was left over was like a transverse shear wall, which happens very rarely, would be the only thing that would cause the structural dependence. So the section was really no longer needed based on all the information that was provided. So that was the intent, and I do agree with this code opinion.
Was that a motion?
Certainly, motion to approve the opinion.
Second.
Okay, a motion and second. Any other discussion?
I have a quick question. This is Todd. So Micah, why was this requested by LNI then? What is that related to something modular or something else that?
Yes, they are the enforcing agencies for the modulars, and they had issues enforcing it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, that's the only opinion we had. Okay, there was one, go back to my agenda here. Remember? So I think Dave Cocott, what he brought up to an item that wasn't on the agenda, I think he had to leave. So he kind of gave us the background. We're going to check into that particular item. And Micah, did you say you had something not on the agenda?
I did. I had two other items of business, but if we want to get into that now, I'm sorry, I was anticipating the staff report to come next, but we can skip them other items.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and bring those up, and then we'll
okay
do the staff report. Okay, go ahead.
First one I hope will be fairly easy, and I'm sorry I didn't capture it when we made this original vote, but the closing date of the code change proposals is actually a holiday. And I know that council staff usually is there to verify if some proposals come in and things like that. I guess my request would be, could we change the deadline for code change proposals to June 1st at close of business instead of May 31st, since May 31st is a holiday and I'm not going to be at work, but that would be my only request. And if I need a motion to do that, I would make a motion to change that date to June 1st, an actual business day and not a federal holiday.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's all about you, isn't it, Micah? No, just teasing you. So I don't think we need a motion. I think that makes sense, right? Can we just do that since it's a holiday? I mean, it just makes sense because
we do have a date stamp on our email for May 31st. So if it's in the email by May 31st, we would have it. But
and it's posted on the website. So if the council can vote on it, we'll feel better.
Okay, well, we better vote on it then. Micah, do you want to make a motion?
A motion to change the middle deadline to June 1st at close of business, I think is what the time is currently. So June 1st close of business would be my motion.
Okay, this is Tony.
Okay, motion and second. Any other thoughts, questions?
I guess, is this something we can easily do, or is this something that's going to cause a great deal of heartache in terms of paperwork and other things that?
No, it's not going to create any hardship. I mean, any problems.
We need to change the message on the website, and we need to change a little bit the schedule that you approved in the previous meeting, but we can do that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Yeah, thank you for that. That makes sense. Forget about the
Thank you.
holiday. Yeah, so
So I didn't catch it till yesterday. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I mean, Lita.
Yeah.
And then my second item has to do with SBCC's policies, procedures, bylaws. There's been some concerns brought up on transparency on the proposed changes to the code. And I know it's kind of been business as usual over the code cycles, but the question comes up that I have is each code change proposal should have a form, should have a reason statement, and should have a cost evaluation. Right now, the tags have done their work and gone through current amendments. And there's nothing in our policies or bylaws that say those current amendments that we're carrying forward should not have some assessment of cost evaluation or actually input on the correct form. The only people that are identifying the current amendments moving forward are the tag members and the public that attend those meetings. And I don't think it's an accurate, transparent method. And I don't think it covers our bylaw requirements or our policies and procedures. When we look at the technical advisory group, article number 3, number 7, says when reviewing proposed amendments to the codes, my understanding is carrying an amendment forward is still an amendment to say, let's just say the 2021 code. We are starting with the 2021 code and we are proposing amendments to that, whether that's carrying one forward from the previous code or proposing new ones. That item number 7 says that method shall be standardized and shall consider economic impact on businesses, housing affordability, construction costs, life cycle costs, cost of enforcement, and that should be reported. My understanding is those forms are not completed. The cost analysis is not done on those amendments we're carrying forward. And I don't think that information, unless we're modifying one of those amendments that are being brought forward, that is included in the economic impact statements that are provided to filings. And maybe I need to be corrected if I'm wrong, but I think that we are failing in those bylaw requirements and in our policies that need to address those cost evaluations. I got to be honest with you, I don't think a code change that was done 3 or 4 code cycles ago can be argued that it has the same cost impact today, whether that's positive or negative. And I think that we need to be more accurate in how we do that and transparent. Of course, I don't expect us to go back to the original proponent of one of these code changes, but maybe that is something that SBCC staff needs to look at, as filling out those forms and identifying the cost analysis at this point for all amendments, because that's what the policies and the bylaws actually state. I think the WAC rules state the same. When we look at, is it 510420, is it 20? Oh my gosh, I got too many of them open, folks, I'm sorry. Yes, 5104020, I think it says the same thing. It talks about those policies and the economic impacts. And like I said, I think it's just been business as usual, just carrying those amendments forward, but that doesn't follow the policy. So I think we need to do one of two things. We either need to address that failure in those instances, or we need to change our policies and bylaws to where we're saying that, hey, if it's an amendment we've had for 3-4 code cycles or last code cycle, we can just move that forward. Policies don't state that at this time. And I think that's a transparency issue that we need to address in our code change proposals.
So Micah, let me get this straight. Are you saying that an amendment that is in the code, a Washington State amendment that's already in the code, and we readdress it for the new code and decide whether it's going to be readopted or not, you're saying that that should be reviewed as far as a cost analysis to current times?
According to our bylaws, it says that all code change proposals shall go through that standardized process, and those considerations shall be made for every amendment. It doesn't say we don't have to do that if we're just carrying it forward. So yes, that's what I'm saying, is that for each amendment, whether it's carried forward or not, should go through the same exact process, which we are not doing at this time. The tag is just going through and reviewing those amendments and deciding whether or not we want to carry them forward. That's it.
Is it, Mike?
And that's not equitable.
If it's being carried forward, it's not an amendment, is it? It's we're amending the
It
base
is
code.
an amendment. No,
are you sure?
We are not. It is an amendment. So if we have the 2018 base ICC code and that's what we adopt, next cycle we're going to the 2021 ICC code and that's what we adopt. We are amending the 2021, whether it's a previous amendment in the same section, we're still amending the current code. And that's how the policy reads. And we are not identifying all the impacts for those existing amendments. I'm just indicating that my interpretation is we're not following the policy and it's not transparent. And I think we are doing a disservice to the state that way.
So I understand what you're saying, Micah, but I read it to, any proposed amendments has to go through that process. Are you sure it speaks to existing amendments?
It doesn't speak to existing amendments. That's what I'm indicating. There's nothing to differentiate an existing amendment from a new amendment. It just says amendments.
Well, I know,
so an existing amendment is still an amendment.
Yeah, but it's not it's not a proposed new amendment. It's just an amendment.
See, you added a word. I'm going to be technical here. You're not proposing a new amendment. You are proposing an amendment, period. You're proposing an amendment to the 2021 code, whether it's already an amendment that we're just moving forward or whether it's a new one. There's no distinction in the policies or bylaws or the WAC rules. And that's what I'm getting at. We could change those to indicate new proposed amendments need to go through this standardized process, and then clarify that existing amendments can just be carried forward based on discussions at the tag level. But right now, our policies don't say that. It says that all amendments, doesn't matter existing or new, are supposed to go through this standardized process.
That's unintended consequences, isn't it? Yeah. So
absolutely, and I want to be transparent with all of it. So
okay, yeah. So I think we need to check further into that and either clarify the language or make a change or change our policy. So what if we?
Absolutely.
We'll just have that. Can you look into that and see what
I can, but yes, I will do. Okay. But if it's any other rule that is already adopted, then if other departments are following, what you're asking for, they have to. It doesn't sound right what you're saying, Micah. Without my respect, but I will review it. I will discuss with Dirk. Not during this meeting, and I will have more information for the next meeting.
That'd be great. That was all I wanted to bring up was a discussion point and have the staff look into it. I don't have a problem with the way we do our methods, and if we want to change our policies and bylaws to clearly identify what we do through the process, that's fine with me. But right now, it's not clear. It just says amendments, and we're just pulling stuff forward without going through the standardized process.
Yeah, I guess part of that is we're assuming that it was done with the new proposal or with the new proposed amendment.
It's a rule. It's a rule that is already adopted, and this is why it appears. I mean, again, I will use my wild card here. I'm new, but based on what I read in the past and what you guys did in the past, it was the intent to require the new proposals. But you're right; it's not. You can read it in a different way in the language. Well, I'll do the research and I'll have more information for the next meeting.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, we're going to go on to the staff report. So Stoyan, take it away.
Okay, second. So what is new? You all know we had a new code specialist, John McIntyre. His first day was April 16, the last meeting in April. And so he doesn't have a signed code yet, but he's shadowing all of us. And, you know, we gave him tasks sometimes and he performs well so far. Most likely he will have the building and residential code, and I'll be helping him, but he doesn't have code yet. New bills, we started with 22, 23 bills. We ended up with 3. All of them are important. And so the first one, HB 1184. This is for the on-site non-potable water systems. It was signed by the governor on May 3rd. The effective date is July 2021. We need to do some work, but we will rely on the Department of Health. So we are not ready to start on this bill yet. The next one is fluorinated gases. It was signed by the governor on May 17. So when I say the effective date, it's the effective date of the law, but there are effective dates in the bill. So for this particular one, it's 2023, as far as I remember. We will start working on this most likely for the mechanical code. The last one is HB 1287. This is the EV charging infrastructure. We spent enough time today, so I just want to let you know that another one is coming. The governor vetoed one section of the bill, but this is not related to the council business. We will start working on it on Monday. The difference in this bill is that it eliminates an exception for R3 occupancies. So what I'm planning is to have some information for the first IBC TAC meeting, and most likely I will have it in the agenda for the next meeting in June, the next council meeting in June, because there are some important sections that the council may need to discuss. The last one, I just want to touch a little bit, but I need more time to research. It appears that we have many mistakes, okay, no mistakes, errors, whatever, in the WAC and in the insert pages and in the published version of the code and in the online version, the ICC online version. We're trying to fix those. I already mentioned that the better option is to have not rules CR 105s for each modifications to WAC. We want to combine as many as we can, because otherwise we are running in a circle. We fix one mistake and we make another. And so we need to find a better way of tracking and avoiding these mistakes. The staff, what the staff is currently doing, the staff is developing insert pages and maintaining. And for 2018, the council staff helped WABO and ICC to publish and have the online version of the Washington codes. These are consolidated codes. The problem is, again, lack of coordination, issues with the time frame. So there are errors in these codes. And I'm researching and taking into consideration different options, what is better for the state of Washington and what is better for the staff to develop a better product. There are several options. I will just mention a few of them, but probably for the next meeting or the meeting in July, I will have a more detailed report on this item. So one option is we continue developing the insert pages. Many folks are using the insert pages, but also many folks that used to use the insert pages, they don't use them anymore. So the other option is just don't develop insert pages because they need too much time for formatting, but develop a document with all state amendments that will be posted, of course, for free on the council website. This is something that we want to explore. And again, I don't have the decision yet. We can try and develop the Washington Consolidated Codes. However, it needs many changes to the procedure because with current Group 1 and Group 2, it just doesn't work for Group 2. Work in coordination with WABO and develop Washington codes instead the insert pages, but this is something that again for Group 2 I don't think it will work, and for 2018 it didn't work either. Again, we have the consolidated codes, which is good, but there are errors which are the reason is lack of coordination and the tight time frame that the council staff didn't have enough time to do the work. It was too much work at the same time. So again, just for discussion purposes, I'm throwing this on the table, but I'll continue to work on it, and I'll try to have a little bit more specific information for the next meeting. And this is all I have in the staff report.
All right, thank you. So any other business? All right, well, I do have one thing. As you may or may not know, this is Building Safety Month. So I just wanted to read what that entails. The Washington State Building Code Council supports the International Code Council's Building Safety Month each May. This year, building safety is especially important as we continue to recover from the coronavirus pandemic, as well as devastating wildfires. Building codes save lives by incorporating the latest technology and providing the safest, most resilient structures for our families and communities. No longer are pieces of residence simply a family living space. They've taken on a role of extended work, school, gym, and entertainment centers. With the greater demand to create safe cities of the future, buildings need to account for increased capacity, dangers from natural disasters, resource shortages, and a wide range of public safety concerns. Building Safety Month provides homeowners, government officials, and the public with the necessary information for ensuring safety in the spaces where they live, work, and learn. This year's campaign themes are week 1 from May 1 to 9 is energy innovation. Week 2 is training the next generation. Week 3 is water safety. And week 4 is disaster preparedness. So just keep that in mind, Building Safety Month every May. All right, the other business is I just want to remind everyone in June, we do have a Building Code Council meeting. It will be June 18th. Day before my birthday, so remember that. And we will have that meeting by Zoom again, and we're going to have some people in person, did you say?
Oh, yeah, I forgot this in the staff report. So yes, I wanted to thank you for your patience, this online meeting. I know many of you like the in-person meetings, and most likely we'll have another online meeting in June, but the department, DES is working on something that will allow us to have in-person / online meetings. It's like a really nice cameras that they turn around, and folks that are far away and don't want to travel, they can attend the meeting in person, although it will be a virtual meeting. So I was told it's a really good system. I know it was used by the sister department in California, and it worked very well, but I don't have any more details about the technicality, how it's done here in Washington. So I was told it may be available in August, and I hope that it will be. And if I have more information, I will share with you, but this is all I have for now.
Great. Okay. So just remember our meeting in June. It's going into summer, but we have one more, and we'll have a full agenda, so I'm sure it'll be active. Any other business to come before the meeting? Micah, did you have your hand up or did you not put it down?
Yeah, I just needed to ask, and I have too many things going on at once. Did we take an action on item number 5? Did we need to send those current proposals to the tags? Did we have to vote on that? And did we vote on that? I don't remember. I hate to say that.
I don't know if we necessarily have to vote to move them forward. There wasn't any opposition to the groups that they were assigned to, and we just do it that way. I don't think it has to be formal as long as there wasn't any objection to any of them.
Okay, I appreciate it. I just wasn't sure. It said we had to take an action, and I don't believe that we did, and so I wanted to verify that we are accurate before we end our meeting.
Except one in the energy code that didn't have the fiscal impact, and that we the cost analysis, and that we will double check. Everything else was okay, and moving to for discussion at the TAC meeting.
I guess I was under the impression that the Code Council did have to formally send those to the tags, but I could be wrong.
I thought
Who do we get a ruling from? Who makes that ruling?
Well, just because it says council action doesn't, I mean, we do have to move them on, but I guess maybe that was my mistake because there wasn't any opposition or nobody had any challenges on any of them that were assigned to the tags when we went through them. So I guess giving everybody an opportunity to say, well, no, that doesn't belong to that tag. And that's all we're doing is we're just assigning it, do these belong to that particular tag? I mean, we can.
Okay, so
we haven't adjourned the meeting, so we can certainly go back and make a motion to that everything that we had on that list for the different tags, the 3 different tags, we could just vote to move them to the tags. If you want to make that motion, let's just do it formally.
I'll make that motion, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Somebody say that.
Have a motion.
I'll make the motion to move those to the tag.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. So, and we're talking about the list that we went over for the 3 groups. So we'll move them forward. And just as they come in, staff reviews them to make sure they're complete and before they even get to us. So, all right, we're good to go on that. Any other business? Anybody else have any comments? Whose cat is in the background? Do you know who that was? No? I heard a cat. All right. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Everybody say yay.
Thank you.
Adjourn and thank you.
Okay.
Good night.